Hello, 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 everyone. This is Dr. David Snyder checking in for one of my favorite topics, the art and science of human influence. Specifically, tonight we'll be talking about how to stop manipulation, how to counter manipulation. The material that we're going to be playing with tonight comes from my programs, Killer Influence, Defense Against the Dark Arts, of course, NLP Ultra, which is our newest information and influence training out there. While we're kind of getting started, first and foremost, how many new people, by show of that's me in the chat, how many new people do we have checking in with us tonight? Go ahead and type your name, where you're checking in from. And also, if you could, please, by all means, type in the chat, what is it you want to learn? What do you want to take away? From tonight's webinar? What's your most important question about the content tonight? If you could come away with, as a byproduct of tonight's training, if you could come away from tonight with just one or two things that would have made it all worth your time and energy and effort, what would that be? Now, obviously, when I created the webinar, when I created the content, I had an idea of what was important and what wasn't. But you know what? You're the expert on your life. You're the expert on the situations, circumstances, and events that matter most to you, where you want to be a winner, where you want to come out on top. And that's what this is about. It's about giving you not just the ability to level the playing field, it's about the ability to actually have an advantage, an ethical one, but an advantage nonetheless in any situation or circumstance that you may find yourself in, right? So, like my YouTubers, shout out to my YouTubers out there. I got Keith and I've got Agnes and I've got Empty Space. Um, and of course, we have, we have Yerman and Emily and Michael. And of course, here in our chats, we've got shout outs to Michelle, and we've got shout outs to, of course, Moss is behind the scenes making everything work. Brandon's out there somewhere, right? We got Jose from Belize. We got Lottie checking in from the UK. So excellent. Just to take a moment, because I really, when I teach, Moss and I were having this discussion earlier. It's like one of the things that people seem to really like about our approach to teaching is that even though we come into a webinar and we have all this content lined out for you, we take the time to figure out, okay, what is it you really want to drill down on in tonight's training, right? Because if this is the scope of every single thing that there is, hold on a second, this is, I think, what Moss was talking about, is that my other computer is messing with my background. So let me see what I can do with that. Maybe I can just put it down. It's not actually the computer that's the problem. And so we'll just move the phone and we'll see if that, oh, there's the other me, right? Right? These are the joys of having a virtual background, right? So we got Sandy in Illinois. We got Edie checking in. We got Brad checking in. We got Lisa. Excellent. Excellent. Looks like we got to have a full house tonight. So I'm excited to share this material with you. Obviously, my goal is to give you hardcore, real world, actionable things that you can really, take away and use. So I'm going to ask you guys a bunch of questions, right? And if you can answer yes to at least two of them, and by answer yes, I mean by actually typing it in the chat. There's about a 19-second delay, I'm told, between our Zoom platform and our YouTube platform. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of I'm going to expand this screen just a little bit so I can see a little easier. Excellent. All right. We're slowly getting this whole tech thing worked out. You got to remember, I grew up in the 60s, 50s, or the 60s and 70s. So a lot of this stuff is still kind of new to me. I know I look young. It's all Zoom, right? Okay. So first and foremost, if you can answer yes to any of the following questions and type "that's me" in the chat. A, how many of you, by show of hands of that or "that's me" in the chat, have ever actually walked away from a conversation, right? And you come away feeling emotionally exhausted, right? Like something was done to you, right? Like your energy was just kind of sucked off or siphoned or whatever. If that's ever happened to you, go ahead and type "that's me" in the chat, right? If you've ever found yourself agreeing to plans or commitments that just felt wrong to you, but you couldn't explain why you said yes, type that in the chat for me. If you've ever found yourself defending someone else's bad behavior, even when you knew better, type yes in the chat. If you've ever felt someone who was just too damn charming and later realized they were too damn charming to be real. Like and later you realize that somehow, some way, you got charmed into doing something you didn't want to do or was not in your best interest, and you felt truly manipulated. Type that in the chat. Huh. Michelle goes, "Oh, me again." It's okay. You're looking at the poster child. All right. I'm going to tell you my story in a moment, but let's make sure that we're on common ground. If you've ever dated someone who made you feel like you were the problem, even when they crossed the line, go ahead and type that in the chat. That's huge. Right? Sandra says yes. Brad says my lawyers say don't admit anything. Probably a good strand. You got the shaggy strategy, as we like to say. Wasn't me, right? Professionally, if you've ever been in a sales call or a pitch where you felt cornered but you couldn't say no, type yes in the chat, right? If you've walked into a negotiation thinking you had control and left feeling like you gave away way too much, it would now be a good time to type yes in the chat, right? If you've ever felt intimidated, overrun, or emotionally spun up in a meeting, but you couldn't pinpoint exactly how it happened, type that in the chat. Right? Some of these are kind of esoteric, and yet when you go back and you think about all the times that you've been in persuasion interactions with people, all of a sudden these things start to come to mind, right? If you've ever had a client, for those of you who are coaches and healers, if you've ever had a client or a colleague who's always left you feeling a little off after the session, like kind of second guessing yourself or just completely drained, type that's me in the chat. Okay. If you've ever felt like you were being emotionally handled or managed, even by someone you trusted, go ahead and we're getting a lot of yeses. And this kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? If you've ever had a teacher, mentor, or coach who made you dependent on their approval and called it support, type yes in the chat. I might drill down on that today. I may share something with you that is going to be a little icky, but it's something we need to be made aware of if we want to protect ourselves from this kind of emotional stuff in the future. Shamela says emotional bonding. Well, Shamela, emotional bonding is part of it. It's not the only thing. There's actually 5 ingredients to the kind of dependency that this particular bullet talks about. First one is proactivity. The second one is identification. Third one is credibility. Fourth one is emotional appeal. And then, of course, did I get all 5? Proactivity, credibility, emotional appeal, identification. That's right. So there's 5. Yeah. So again, there's a whole formula that creates that kind of highly emotionally dependent behaviors, and it's one that's used quite often in very, very malevolent and nefarious ways. I don't want to get too creepy tonight, but it's kind of what we signed up for, right? So I'm going to try to keep it as fun and as light as possible, because again, this can get pretty heavy, right? When I teach defense against the dark arts, I have to crack jokes and I have to do all kinds of crazy fun stuff just to keep people from getting really, really like, you know what I'm talking about. Things get really heavy and really, really serious and stuff like that. Here's the secret to learning all of this material is to be as playful and fun and curious as possible, right? We're going to be talking about some fairly dark stuff tonight, right? Because again, like some of my colleagues were talking about, is like how many of you? Let me finish my list, and then I'm going to ask you guys a couple other questions, okay? Because one of the reasons that these webinars are always so popular is because I'm interactive with you, and I want to know you. I want to understand your world, so I can give you the very best things, right? Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt trapped in somebody else's narrative and didn't realize it until it was too late? Right? They gave you the facts, but the story they spun around the facts was completely different than other people's versions of those facts. Yes? Type yes in the chat if that's ever happened for you. Right? Ninchi says, "Oh, it's actually live." Yes, I'm very, very much alive. Right? Some people whose secrets I'm about to expose this webinar are going to wish me otherwise, but I got God on my side, so life is good. If you've ever recognized manipulation, do you recognize now that you've seen it, now that we've kind of pulled back the curtain on some of this, how many of you answered? Let's go for the goal. How many of you answered at least 3 yeses to what we've just mentioned? Okay. If you answered, again, my qualifier was 2, but if you answered yes to more than 3, this is the right place to be. Now, obviously, we're going to cover, I'm going to take you as far as I can down this rabbit hole as I can. I'm going to try to keep it fun and I'm going to try to keep it light, but some of it's going to get a little heavy, right? And I'm going to teach you some things that I hope you can take out into the world and use right away. And then I'll show you where to go to level up. So if, again, like I was saying before, if this is the scope of everything there is to learn in the realm of persuasion and influence, much less, not to concern the actual art of countering the influence, right? I only got time. I got time for this as opposed to this. So I'll take you as far as I can down this rabbit hole, and I'll show you where to go to level it up. Is that okay? Type that's okay in the chat. All right. How many new people? Anyone not identifying is asleep. Oh, that's cool. That's pretty hardcore, but yeah, you're not wrong, right? Okay, so here's what I want to know about. What do you guys want to focus on tonight? How many new people? We got Amy. We got how many other new people? Shamila? Shamila, your name looks very familiar. I've seen you before. Lottie says love and dark manipulation. Pakistani name. Okay. All right. And this is your first time? Okay. Jose, welcome. All right. New people, type in what you most want to be able to do as a byproduct of tonight's training. In other words, as we go through the 2 or 3 hours together in this class, when you come away from it, what is it you want to be able to know or understand or do better that you haven't been able to know, understand, or do better before this webinar? Type it in the chat. YouTubers, you do the same. Keith is noticing that I have an image in my background. If I move the wrong way, Ghost David appears. Maybe not. All right. Oh, there he is. He just hides behind me, right? I should probably move that sign, but it is what it is. So Shamila says, I hate when I get trapped into the father wound, the validation seek. Oh, okay. Okay. Great hypnotist. Feel this is beneficial. Protect my energy. Okay. What else you got? Now here's the thing about going back to the whole protecting your energy thing. You're going to find that there's 2 things that will result in energy drain, okay, or the perception of energy drain. The first one is someone who monopolizes your attention. The second is someone who stimulates your emotions in a negative way. When you have those 2 things together, energy is your body's going to burn up glucose and other related substances and things like that nature. And when you come away from it, you're going to feel like your blood sugar just crashed, right? So we can talk about it from a neurophysiological perspective. We can talk about it from a psycho-emotional perspective or energetic or vibrational perspective. This class is not going to border so much on the wonderful world of woo, right? We could talk about those things for sure, but that's really not what the focus of this webinar is. This webinar is really all about the neuroscience and the behavioral science-based understanding of how unethical manipulation, mind control, psychological abuse, things of that nature are performed and how you can recognize them and how you can counter them. So my goal for you tonight is by the time you come off here tonight, I want you guys to really have a very strong ability to begin to perceive attempts at unethical psychological influence, right? What are some things that you can look for? What are some things that can flag you? I want to teach you about I want to teach you a little bit about what these kinds of people look for in a target. Now, each and every one of us at any given moment in our life has either been the target of influence or the influencer. Sometimes we were the good guys, sometimes not so much. Now, let's be very, very honest with ourselves. Because before we can go deep into unethical influence, we have to define in a useful way, where's that line for us, right? Where is the line between ethical influence and unethical influence? There are some people out there who believe any form of influence or persuasion is inherently unethical. Well, if that were true, the world as we know it would stop. Okay, because what we're dealing with are levels of influence, levels of persuasion, okay, and intention. So everything that I want to share with you tonight, I'm going to teach you both sides of the coin. And the reason for that is this. How many, by a show of hands in the chat, have spent a lot of time, and by a lot, I mean more than 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 books studying influence, persuasion, cells, in whatever context, whether it's hypnosis, NLP, uh, social work. If you've spent more than 3 or 4 months studying these things, if you've read more than 3 or 4 books, all right, you're not really a beginner anymore. But here's the thing I want to ask you that maybe you haven't thought about. Aside from my trainings, right? How much time have you actually spent learning how to stop it? How much time have you spent learning how to profile, how to recognize it, and actually neutralize it? Most of it? Okay, that's honest, DJ says. Zero? Doing that. Eric says doing that now. Yeah, well, I said aside from my trainings, right? I did. Tried your magic frame and it worked. Well, again, magic frame is more of a therapeutic or an alchemical process rather than an influential process. Certainly, you're influencing yourself, right? Okay, so let's talk about. I'm going to pull up my notes here and see where we're going. How many veterans? Before I go any further, how many veterans do we have tonight? Lots. All right. So my goal for all you vets is, once again, if I'm going through the content of tonight's webinar and you see questions that I don't see or I don't answer because it's going to take us down a different rabbit hole, then I ask you once again to go ahead and answer those questions. If one of my veterans from Planet David doesn't answer the question quite to your satisfaction, by all means, when the replay to this webinar goes up, you can absolutely type your question in the comments section below the webinar, and I will circle back, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So the first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about victimology, if I could, because one of the things that happens in unethical influence is these people, especially the really high level ones, they're really good at one thing that most people aren't, and that is profiling. A lot of these people have an innate level of understanding of facial expression, body language, posture, gait, gesture that helps them to flag people who are potentially vulnerable to influence. Now, when we talk about different types of predators, most people inevitably circle back to the narcissist, right? You know, if I had $1 for every person that called me on the phone or sent me an email and says, I'm in love with a narcissist. I was married to a narcissist. I'm dating a narcissist. I was raised by a narcissist. I wouldn't need to do these webinars. I could retire, right? And it's important to understand something about narcissism as a concept versus a pathology, because it's very, very easy for us to assume anybody we don't like or anybody who influences us in a way that we find less than pleasurable is a narcissist. It's not true, because on one level, and this is why persuasion actually works, on one level, we're all narcissistic. See, narcissistic isn't one thing, or it's not one degree. It's a continuum. It's a spectrum of behavior and self-centeredness. Now, certainly all the other psychological profiles or types that we're going to touch on throughout the course of this webinar have narcissistic components to them. But just because somebody exhibits high levels of narcissism doesn't make them sociopathic. Because someone what's the word I'm looking for? Exhibits high levels of narcissism doesn't make them psychopathic. High levels of narcissism doesn't make them Machiavellian. High levels of narcissism doesn't make them a dark triad. Okay? Yes, very much, Shamila. Pop psychology has taken this buzzword, kind of like back in the early 2000s, And again, I hate to use a negative example, but back in the early 2000s, right, when the Twin Towers went down, everything was terrorism. Anything we didn't like, anything we objected to, anything that we felt threatened by, we labeled it a terrorist, and all of a sudden it was okay, right? Because you just slapped that label on there. Look, people are going to do stuff you don't like. People are going to do things you don't disagree with or that you don't agree with. That doesn't make them evil. It doesn't make them narcissistic, even though they might be. It doesn't make them sociopathic. It doesn't make them psychopathic, right? Humans are humans, right? But there is a continuum. There is a spectrum, right? And again, I'm not saying that I'm not trying to invalidate your experiences. I'm not trying to invalidate your feelings in any way, shape, or form. What I want us to do is begin to explore these topics and understand one of the most important aspects of countering or neutralizing unethical influence or unwanted influence, recognizing it. And if we can't get our emotions out of the way, those emotions are going to be the biggest leveraging point that actual influencers and manipulators are going to use against you. So we have to dial down the emotion because that's how they get you. They attack you through your emotions. They attack you through your self-esteem. They attack you through your needs and your wants and your values and your desires. Okay? Now, let's circle back to the whole narcissistic thing. I've met a lot of very, very nice people who are extraordinarily narcissistic. Extraordinarily. But they're the kindest people. They'll go out of their way to help you out. Now, keep in mind, they're doing it because they want to be the hero. They're doing it because they want to show that, how important they are, but they're still helpful, right? In fact, one of the things about narcissistic tendencies in general is that once you recognize it in another person, it becomes extremely easy to leverage. Narcissists are very predictable, right? And once you understand how to flag them and profile them, well, now you can choose what to do about it, right? Most of us are in dire need of some kind of early warning system, some way that lets us know way, way ahead of time who's potentially a problem before they get a chance to insert themselves into our world. Would you agree with that? Would you say that's true or not true for you? That we would need some kind of an early warning system, some way to profile and flag people to know. Okay, so that's fair, right? So why don't we start there? But why don't we start there by just covering some foundations, covering some basic understandings of what is narcissism, what is psychopathy, what is sociopathy, what is Machiavellianism, dark triadism, right? How do these things affect? What are the things that actually these people, these perpetrators, for lack of a better, what do they look for? Right? What do they look for in a potential mark or a potential victim? Right? So I'd like to start off, if it's okay, right? I'd like to start off with victimology, right? Now, for those of you who are brand new to Planet David, you might be sitting there asking, why is this guy, who is this guy in the vest? And why the hell is he even qualified to tell me about this? Right? So let me give you a little background on me. My name is Dr. David Snyder. I've been teaching, in 2020, I was named the #1 NLP trainer in the world by globalgurus.org. I've been among the top NLP trainers in the world for the last 9 years. I've authored over 15 different products on various forms of human influence. I've co-taught influence and persuasion seminars with some of the biggest names in the behavioral sciences world. And you can actually buy some of those products on my website. I've run a practice here in Solana Beach, California, San Diego, since 2005, where my specialty was treating physiological illness caused by repressed emotion, psycho-emotional issues. I've discovered more about how the human mind and body create illness and manifest those things than probably most people will ever learn or discover. And we still do that today. We have hundreds of hours of video. That's how you found us, right? Where you can see what we do firsthand over and over and over again and apply those techniques to your life. I'm also a lifelong martial artist. I also know what a lot of people don't know is I actually studied kinetic interview and interrogation when I was an undergrad because I was thinking about going into profiling and forensic work, right? So I've never lost my fascination for human behavior. But the most important thing I want you to understand is that growing up, I was extremely shy. I was extremely emotionally sensitive and very, very naive as to how people abuse and manipulate and emotionally uh, coerce people into doing things. And so, for many, many years of my life, I was the target of lies, blackmail, emotional bullying, deception. I was so desperate to be liked and accepted and loved that I was willing to tolerate all kinds of really degrading things just to be part of the group. And at some point, that level of hurt and suffering that I went through reached a critical mass in myself. And I remember that day. Right? And I'm not sure if I want to talk about it because it was pretty heinous for me, right? Especially because I thought at that moment that I was actually about to be rescued, and the dagger just got twisted deeper. It was one of those moments where someone pretends to be handing you an olive branch and then beats you with it. And it was that moment for me that made me realize this can't happen anymore. And for a long time I shut down, but I also became extremely, extremely obsessed, for lack of a better word, with understanding. How do I protect myself? How do I keep myself safe? How do I keep from being kicked out, picked on, lied to, bullied? And I was bullied a lot in my early years. Right? That's what led to me to studying martial arts. I've been a lifelong martial artist. I got my 10th degree black belt like 10 years ago, 10 years ago. I still study martial arts today. But where I've seen the biggest transformations has been in the realm of human influence, persuasion, and alchemy. And so to me, this is a very special topic. This is a very important topic because we're in a world now and we're embracing an ideology in this country, and probably rightly so. I'm not going to judge one way or the other, where it's peace through strength, right? And this is why you and I both need to master this skill, because the ability to influence, but not just the ability to influence, the ability to perceive influence, to have an early warning system, and to counter the influence that's being leveraged on us by whatever part of the political, religious, socioeconomic line you're on. The ability to influence human behavior and to manage and avoid certain types of influence is strength. It's power. If you're, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you a very, very unpleasant truth. If you're moving through the world working from the ideal that any form of influence is unethical and that it's wrong, you are the victim. You have been hypnotized into disempowering yourself, because we live in a world where you cannot avoid influence unless you're going to unplug everything, move into a cave or a cabin in the woods by yourself. Influence is going to happen. Persuasion is going to happen. You can't not experience it. So if you're not willing to take control of that aspect of your life, if you're not willing to take charge of this, learn these skills, and do something with them, there are many, many well-funded, highly trained agencies happy to do it for you, right? But you may not like where you end up. Most of you guys know I'm a no BS kind of guy. My intention here is never to offend anyone, although I do have a very provocative teaching style. So before we get into content, if politically incorrect language, colorful metaphors, swearing, or the word boobies offends you, probably not the best time to be here. But if you're tired of manipulation, if you're tired of getting taken by surprise, being blindsided, backsided, bent over and say, hey, here it comes again, hang out with me for a while. I'm going to teach you something useful. Okay? Does that sound like a plan? Can we do that? Let me get off my soapbox. Cool. All right, let's talk about how these people actually sort for their victims, right? Before I go any further into this, is there anybody here who does not know the difference between a sociopath, a Machiavellian, dark triad? Anybody here not know what those things are, or what those ideas mean? Let me see if I can find it really quick. Okay. Let me find. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share the back of my screen. See if this works. All right. So again, as you can see, these are from some of my notes. Defense Against the Dark Arts. So, who are predators? Narcissists, sociopaths, Machiavellians, dark triads. When we talk about profiling, okay, we start looking for these kinds of people. We have to talk about profiling in the sense that there are certain things that we want to look for, certain things that we have to establish. If we're going to look for narcissists, we need to establish a baseline. A baseline is what is their normal level of behavior? What are they like normally? Because as we look for lies and stuff like that, we want to sort for deviations from the baseline. We want to look for deviations from those baselines that happen in clusters. What's a cluster? Two or more changes in their behaviors, nonverbal in their behaviors. Be nonverbal or linguistic that happen consistently. Okay. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about this toward the end of the webinar. Okay. Searching principle. Because most of us we don't have 20 years. To become a body language expert or behavioral profiler. We need a shortcut. That shortcut actually comes from the military, specifically the military combat hunter program. The first one is the searching principle. Searching principle says, okay, there are certain specific things we want to look for, and we only look for those. Okay. Let me see if I can cut this for you guys. Searching principle. What specifically are we looking for? Okay. So in this case, when we talk about narcissists, this is what we look for. Self-focused or self-centered thinking. Okay. These people are always going to think of themselves first. They're going to, when they talk about things, it's always going to be in the context of how they've influenced it, right? They don't think about what others need for their impact or their impact on the behaviors. Now, remember, we're talking about everyone exhibits some level of narcissism. That does not make them predatory. Okay. This is important because the moment you label somebody a narcissist, we start thinking the worst. We got to get out of that, right? We got to move away from that and start using our ability to cognitively analyze things. We have to get the emotion out of the way. But you will see this. You'll see patterns of behavior, and this is part of that pattern. They will always be self-referential. Okay? They don't think about the impact of their behavior on other people, right? The greater they are on the scale, the greater the degree of disregard. Okay. And here's something that not a lot of people talk about. And I should probably, and I don't know if I've heard anybody really talk about this. I've seen in my processes of working with behavior, I've actually seen situational narcissism. I've seen people who are normally very humble, normally very easy to get along with, considerate, become super narcissistic in certain contexts. So it's important to remember that each and every human being is not one identity. We wear masks. We have little subroutines and identities and personalities that turn on and off as contexts and environments change. The fields of psychology and behavior where these things are looked into is called object relations theory and embodied cognition. These elements have an ability to change the identity that we are operating from at any given moment. Now, can you have a narcissistic AI running in your head that only turns on at certain moments? In my experience, yes. Right. So when we start looking at using going back to this idea of a search principle, we have to have very specific criteria that we're looking for. Because if we try to include every possible manifestation, you'll see almost nothing. The reason I talk about this, the Combat Hunter program, is because the Combat Hunter program was a body language profiling tool used to find terrorists or potential terrorists before they had a chance to do something, to get what they call left of bang. Left of bang is a term in the military that says you got there before the bomb went off. So if you have like, if this is 12 o'clock and this is 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, depending on how you're oriented, right? The bomb's scheduled to go off at 3 p.m. You get there sometime before that clock hits. That's left of bang. Anytime you get there at or when after the bomb has gone off, you've gotten there right of bang or after the effect. Now, why do I make this distinction? Because a lot of our law enforcement technologies, a lot of our behavioral sciences stuff is geared towards after the bang, right of bang. A lot of the interview and interrogation stuff that we learn in body language, and I love all of it, right? And it works really well. But a lot of it can only be utilized in a closed environment after the event has happened. But that doesn't help us, right? Realizing somebody's a narcissist after we've been dating them for 6 months is really kind of like trying to close the barn door after the horse got out, right? To use that metaphor. We want to flag these people before they have a chance to get a root in our life. Does that make sense? If you're with me so far, go ahead and type that into chat. I'm looking at my screen here. I'm learning a lot by trying to use two different computers at the same time. Through the fire. I've learned a lot of that kind of stuff from Chase. Yeah, I've co-taught with Chase. Chase and I are good friends. Right? Haven't seen him in a few months, though. He's been really busy. Okay. So some people, one of the things, when you start looking at people who are higher and higher towards the pathological sense of things, right? Then what you're going to see is they tend to look at people as possessions rather than people, right? You're something they own. You're an asset to use or discard. One of my good friends, Scott Sandlin, was talking to a colleague one time that he was partnered with. And they were having a really intense disagreement about something. And he basically asked her, he said, how do you view our relationship? She goes, you're an asset to be used. And she was just so matter of fact about it that he completely just broke off that partnership because he thought he had a friend, and what he really had was somebody who was using him to get access to things, right? So sometimes these things will slip out. And what I'd like to do once we get through this idea of profiling and victimology, I'd like to kind of spotlight for you some things that tend to manifest that let you know ahead of time who or what you might be dealing with. So let's look at this, okay? So these people lead this idea of possessive thinking, leads to an attitude of ownership, entitlement, and dehumanization, right? They don't really think, they think of you as a thing, right? Egocentric thinking, right? These people are almost always concerned with and for themselves. It's always about him or her. They hardly ever think about what someone else might want or need. They think entire world revolves around them, believes it's the duty of others to place what he desires or what interests him above everything else. This is an important one. This goes to a concept or process we call projection. I guess I should take the cap locks off. There's an interesting phenomenon that human beings exhibit. We have a tendency, and this is every human being on the planet, by the way, in order for you to not do this, you have to be highly, highly trained. So understand that what I'm about to teach you is one of the most important persuasion principles and profiling principles that you can run across. It's called projection. Human beings are constantly projecting their idealized values, beliefs, behaviors onto everyone around them and treating them like they're exactly the same, like their values are exactly the same. So many times when these people forget what they're doing or they slip, they'll often just assume that the things that their agenda is just as important to you as your agenda or more so, and they should take precedence because they're projecting their inner world onto you. Okay, and when you have eyes to see and ears to hear, that can flag itself very, very effectively. In fact, I'm going to teach you, one of the things I'm going to teach you today is a three-step protocol that will cause people to reveal their inner nature to you. And they will have the most amazing, wonderful connection to you, while at the same time revealing all of these details about their life that they would never just volunteer. And if you have the, like I said, if you have the eyes to see and you have the ears to hear, then what will happen is the patterns of their behavior will emerge for you. Okay. So, but I want to kind of look at, but what's important about that protocol is it works. It works really, really well. But if you don't know what you're looking for, how is it going to flag itself for you? So we have to cover this before we can go to that. Does that make sense? When he says, will there be a link to the notes? Um, Zoom is probably going to take a transcript of this, so we'll try and make that available for you. You'll probably have to give us your username and password or an email to send it to you or something like that. But we'll see what we can do. Okay. All right. So egomaniacal thinking. All right. These people tremendously overvalue themselves. They overvalue the contributions that they make. They think they're entitled to whatever they want. And I'm using the editorial he here, just for those of you who are worried about inclusivity or whatever. They think things are owed to them just because they want them, right? Yeah, Whitney, I recommend you go ahead. There will be a replay of this, so by all means, if you don't want to take the notes, that's fine. It's really up to you, right? All right. They love they love shameless thinking. This is the one I think that gets most of us because a lot of us who are normally socialized, we don't get this. One of the things that you'll discover as you start working in the behavioral sciences world, there's basically a line on two sides of the spectrum. You have neuroticism and you have character disturbance, right? Or antisocial behavior. Most of us who are normally socialized fall somewhere in here. Neuroticism is a type of over socialization. We're so sensitive to doing something wrong or not being enough or trying to make sure that we're not doing something wrong that we get more and more self-conscious. And that self-consciousness is what makes us vulnerable to the character disturbed people because people on this side of that line, they are at war with society. They are at war with the rules of good citizenship, the rules of good behavior. of people cooperating and getting along together. These people are really, really good at pretending to be one of those. But if you can spot the patterns, they'll flag themselves. But this is where a lot of us kind of get taken advantage of in a big, big way. Because for those of us on the normally socialized side of the continuum, all the way into the highly neurotic, we're taught to be accommodating, to be sharing, to be reciprocal in our nature. Does that ring true to everybody? If I do something for you, you kind of want to do something for me in return to balance those scales. True or not true? Okay. The further you get along this continuum, okay, this is important. The further you move down this continuum, this person will give you one thing, but they'll take everything else. So what will happen is these people will continually ask for things that are outside the scope of what they've given you or what most people are feel comfortable giving. How many people have ever been asked for something that, like for example, maybe I'm trying to find a really good example. Here's a really good one. How many people how many people have ever been at a dinner or a buffet or a party or something like that, and you cut up the pie or you cut a piece of food up, and there's one piece that's just slightly bigger that you got for yourself, and as soon as somebody sees it, they take it, right? Or you're someone. I don't recommend you ever loan money to people, right? But let's say that you don't mind loaning somebody, $50, $100, whatever, right? And and one time. But you have this person, you loan them $50. A week later, they're back asking for another $50. A week later, they're asking for $100, right? And for some mysterious reason, they don't see your discomfort when they're asking for these things. They don't realize that they're going beyond the levels of what society has deemed to be appropriate reciprocity. Shameless thinking is one of the ways I see this particular aspect of narcissism manifesting itself. Because what happens is the moment they ask you something and you give it to them, you've created a precedent that they now know it's okay to keep asking, right? Most of us who are normally socialized, we're very aware of when we're making requests. But the further you are along these spectrums, if they're as long as you keep giving, they'll keep asking. And they feel no shame about it. They feel no embarrassment about it because what's the worst that can happen? You say no, well, they'll just ask somebody else, right? And the reason I bring this up is because I am such a sucker for this for a long time. It took me a long time to really learn how to say no and not feel like the worst person on the planet. And that's where we get into the manipulation side of things because a lot of people have this an ignorance of social boundaries, right? And so if you tell them no, they'll usually just say no, right? Or they'll say, okay, whatever, right? But someone who's more on the manipulation side, you say no, they'll start blaming you, gaslighting you, accusing you of being jealous, envious, trying to keep them down. Any of this sound familiar? Okay. They're angry. They're at war. Remember, people on the other side of the spectrum, and there's a range here. People on the other side of the spectrum are at war with society. They're at war with the rules, the normally accepted rules of polite behavior. They understand them. They know you believe in them. They know they're being enforced. They don't care. And that's where we move into somebody who's just basically narcissistic to someone who's manipulative, someone who is antisocial. Right? And we need to make this distinction. I get people ask me for stuff all the time. right? I get people getting email from all over the world saying, I can't afford your stuff. Can I have it for free? Right? Oh, Agnes, trust me. If if you're in any form of business, especially online, you're going to get these kinds of emails. You're going to get these kinds of. Now, I'm not blaming those people because the if you don't ask, the answer is always no, right? But the question becomes, and the tell becomes, what happens when you say no? Do they say, "Oh, no, it was worth a shot," or do they turn it around and make you the bad guy, the bad girl? What do they do when their attempt at influence meets resistance? Shamila says they get a lot of anger. Boom. Asking somebody for something isn't manipulation. You understand that? Asking somebody for something is not manipulation. What you do when they say no is or can be. Does that make sense? Because again, a lot of us think that any form of influence, any form of ask, anything that smacks of salesmanship or negotiation is inherently bad. It is not. It is how we've survived and grown and thrived. And if you don't have the ability to influence on a social level, you're basically doomed to extinction in one form or another. You're not going to get the things you want. You're not going to live your best life. You're going to move through the world constantly jealous, envious, and bitter of people who are willing to do those things because you believe in some way that influence is evil. And I'm not saying, again, influence is a tool. And I love the skills of influence. And I know better than anyone that these things can be abused. But if you're not willing to learn these skills and then have the willpower to use them, people on this side of the spectrum, they have a belief that if you were foolish enough to do what they wanted, you deserve to have it happen to you. You understand what I'm saying? If they ask you something and you say no, and then they launch their attack and you give it to them, they believe you deserve that because you couldn't hold your ground, because you weren't strong enough to hold that line in the sand. You weren't strong enough to hold your boundaries. Again, Shamil is a very good sense. I always tell my students, and I consider you all my students now, regardless of where you come from or if this is your first time or not, anything outside of your awareness is outside of your control. Anything outside of your awareness is outside of your control. The corollary to that, just because you're not aware of it, doesn't mean it isn't influencing you, doesn't mean it's not affecting you. My job as your teacher, first and foremost, before anything else, is to help you become progressively more aware. Why? Because without awareness, there is no choice. Without awareness, there is no choice. Does that make sense? Is this helpful? Talk to me. Okay. I just want to make sure that you guys are getting fed, right? So when we look, let's just really summarize. So when we look at people who are potentially dangerous for us, they're going to exhibit some level of possessive thinking. They're going to tend to look at people as possessions and objects, assets to be used or discarded. They're going to be very egocentric in their approach. They're going to be very egomaniacal. They're always going to overvalue or overstate their contributions. Right? This is the one I think we all need to really zero down in on. There's always going to be an ask, and it's not the ask necessarily. The ask will often flag itself because they will ask for something that is way outside of your comfort zone to give. Okay. Way outside their comfort zone, your comfort zone to give. But that doesn't necessarily make them manipulative. It makes them socially unaware, potentially, right? But it doesn't make them manipulative. What makes them manipulative is what they do when you say no, right? Most character disturbance, most sociopathic, uh, Machiavellian, dark triad stuff manifests at the point of resistance. In other words, when you stop doing what they want or you don't give them access to the thing they want. The difference will be between the different prototypes is how they go about getting you to do it. So someone who's inherently character disturbed and sociopathic, they may try to blackmail you, or they may try to emotionally manipulate you, gaslight you, um, future promise you, um, spin or reframe what's going on in such a way that you feel bad about yourself. Someone who's more Machiavellian, they may, on the surface, say to you, "Oh, I understand. Take a few days, think about it, right?" And then all of a sudden, they may launch a very intricate strategy for getting people to not like you, for other people to leverage you to do what they want them to do, what they want you to do. They'll come at you from a different, oblique, unexpected angle. Sociopaths tend to be a bit more, especially on the character disturbed, more aggressive sides. They tend to be a little bit more linear, in my experience. Whereas the people with the Machiavellian tendencies, they're going to come at you from all different angles. They may instead of just reframing things, they may actually fabricate stuff to use against you. Right? They may go to all your friends and tell them things that you said about them that you've never said to separate and cut you off from your support systems. Right? And that's a big characteristic of deeply manipulative sociopathic slash Machiavellian behaviors. Once they insert themselves into your family, into your business, into your organization, they're going to slowly begin to isolate you or whoever it is they're seeking to manipulate from all of their support systems. I had a couple of times in my organization where I brought outside consultants in to do certain things, and within a month, she was getting this person to argue with this person, getting this person to argue with this person, and suggestion and easier way to bring this other person that she wanted in to the whole process, right? And I've had that happen multiple times. So there's certain patterns of behavior that can flag you as to how things are working, right? I just see that with antisocial people, it's going to be more linear. Whereas with these Machiavellian types, it's going to be a lot more oblique. It's going to be a lot more long-term types of things. Now, what's interesting about people on the character disturbance scale, and especially with sociopathy, is that sociopaths, and this is another reason why um, I tend to see sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder as more linear, is because statistically speaking, these people have a very low, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very sensation seeking. They have very low impulse control. Whereas the more you get towards the Machiavellian side, you see that same sociopathic narcissistic tendency, but you see a lot more long-term thinking and strategizing. Right? Great book to learn from a lot about this kind of stuff is a book called 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Really good book to really start to explore some of these things. Another great book that I recommend to all my students is called Red Flags by Dr. Wendy Patrick. And Red Flags is probably a better book for the content of tonight's webinar because it gives us actionable things that we can look at. Okay. The information from this particular webinar segment is actually from a series of books called Character Disturbance and In Sheep's Clothing. So if you guys want to look up those books and get those materials, you're more than welcome to look at that. Okay. All right. So another thing, and this goes to what I was saying before about low impulse control. People with that are higher and higher on the on this side of the spectrum. Remember, this is the line of normally socialized. This is increasing levels of neuroticism and self-consciousness and conscientiousness. This is the opposite. As you go further and further and further and further down this way, these people are quick and easy thinkers. They're always looking for faster, easier ways to cut through the BS. Right now, in face reading, one of the ways that we might be able to profile this is by the space between a person's eyebrows. In the Chinese Miangshang systems, which is a face reading system, right? They would tell you that the further apart the eyebrows, you have what is called a father's blessing. And a father's blessing is basically that the dominant parental unit in that particular family took excessive amounts of time to teach this person with the wider eyebrows how to get along with people, how to function within an organization, a hierarchy, and a society. And because of that, when these types of people with the wider brow would go into an organization or a corporation or something like that, they would tend to rise up very smoothly and very, very consistently up through that hierarchy because they understood how to get along with people, how to observe the protocols and the rituals and the etiquette of that corporate culture or that familial culture or that educational culture, and they would become very, very accomplished. People with the smaller father's blessing, in other words, the eyebrows are closer. These people are more impulse driven. They're impatient. They're people who, if they see 5 steps to get from where they are to the top of the pyramid, they want to try and cut out 3 of them. If there's 5 people ahead of them to get to that position, they want to eliminate or bypass those people as quickly as possible. Okay. Now, the father's blessing doesn't make you a narcissist. Doesn't make you a Machiavellian. It makes you impatient. But you will see a lot of times in the brow area of people who are higher on the narcissistic spectrum, you will tend to see very full, defined eyebrows. You may see a little bit more of a prominence of the brow bone, right? Now, these are not indicators of narcissism per se. They're indicators of higher degrees of testosterone, which makes people more aggressive, more assertive, more impatient, right? So, because most narcissists, and well, actually, most sociopathic people, and to me, sociopathy is kind of the entry point into pathological types. That's just me. Other psychologists may disagree, but this is kind of how I look at it. So, this quick and easy thinking idea lends itself to what we call low impulse control and sensation seeking behavior. So these people love adrenaline. They love altered states. So you may see them doing drugs. You may see them getting drunk. You may see them skydiving. You may see them doing cliff diving, all kinds of crazy adrenaline based stuff, right? Now, another way of saying sensation seeking behavior, high risk. They love taking chances, right? Right? Is this helpful? Have you guys, as I've been going through this, would you quit talking about me? You guys are funny. Here's another one. It's very similar to shameless thinking, guiltless thinking. These people never, 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 never think of rightness or wrongness before they act. They don't care. They want what they want when they want it. Right? This goes back to again this idea of quick and easy thinking and impulse control issues. I want what I want when I want it. Right? There's a very old saying that I hesitate to mention because it might get me bleeped on YouTube, or it might offend some people. So I'm going to ask you: is it okay for me to use this very offensive piece of languaging? I need a unanimous one on this. All right. How many of you have ever heard the expression, a hard penis has no conscience? Right? These people are basically walking erections. And I'm not talking just a sexual context. These people look at things to be acquired and discarded, right? So again, when we're looking at behaviors, right? They want what they want when they want it, context independent, they don't care, right? They take what they want no matter what social norms are violated. Okay. I've watched people do this weird times, you know. They tend to foster an attitude of irresponsibility. And this is another one that we want to pay attention to as a potential red flag because remember that you're dealing with an egomaniacal personality, which means they can do no wrong, which means it's always somebody else's fault. And when it is their fault, it's because of something someone else did. Anybody ever have that happen? Right? Oh, she had it coming. She was wearing a short skirt, right? Or if you hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have had to do this. Well, did you really need to punch that person in the face? Yeah, they deserved it. They called me, they weren't giving me what I want, right? Again, I'm using very aggressive examples, but how many times has somebody justified their behavior as a response to what somebody else did when they knew it was wrong, right? Again, think about, let's go meta to this now. Let's go meta to this. What did I say? When do a lot of these behaviors manifest? When the person hears no. When the person encounters any form of resistance, that's where these things flag themselves excessively. Right? So again, as long as you're saying yes, you'll almost never have a problem until you do have a problem. Right? Mistrustful thinking. This is a big one. These people are professionally paranoid. They have a poor concept of how to gain other people's trust or judge trustworthiness in others. This is what makes them actually easy to manipulate. Okay. And you'll see this a lot more in the people who are more sensation seeking, more aggressive. The Machiavellians, the thinkers, the planners, the strategizers, they're a little bit better at it, right? And again, I'm going to make a distinction here, right, between narcissistic, sociopathic, or antisocial personality disorder, and dark triad or Machiavellians. Narcissists are actually quite good at getting people to like them. Let me say that two more times. Narcissists, regardless of where you are on the scale, are often quite good at getting people to like them. Even when the people know they're narcissistic, they tend to still have a positive attitude towards that person for a while. Not dark triad, the Machiavellians, the antisocial strategizers are also quite good in many cases at getting people to trust them, at least in the short term. And that's what we're dealing with is short term stuff. But the part in the middle, the sociopathics, the character disturbed, these people are often very brute force, either psychologically, emotionally, physically. Okay? They tend to think of everyone as dishonest as they are, as that everyone else is as dishonest as they are, and think they have to outwit them before they themselves get outwitted. Remember what I said about people on this side of the spectrum? They are at war with everybody else on the spectrum. They are at war with society. They think everybody else on this side of the fence is out to get them. And so they justify their behavior saying, if I don't do it to you first, you're going to do it to me. And that's their justification for doing these things. Okay? So they're always looking at people as chess pieces that they have to manipulate, chess pieces that they have to manipulate around or circumvent. Right? When other people misspeak or stutter over a word, they frame it as lying. I have very, very dangerous children. And if I misspeak one word out of place when I'm talking to some of my daughters sometimes, before I know it, everything that I just said got turned around, and I am like the world's worst dad. Right? Because again, people will gravitate or drill down onto any tiny piece of minutia and try to spin it. Okay? And if you're not aware of these patterns, you can't prepare an adequate defense, because what happens when any of these things happen is it takes us by surprise. It does what in NLP we call a pattern interrupt or a confusion induction. It literally derails our thinking process. Our brain goes into confusion. And in that moment, when our brain goes into confusion, we become hypersuggestible. Okay? We teach you this in Defense Against the Dark Arts. We teach you this in NLP Ultra. We call it combative confusion or renegade reframing, right? Where these simple patterns, when they're deployed at the right time, will just put your brain in a spin. And in that moment of chaos, the next thing that person says goes right in, and your entire way of thinking shifts. Now, most of the people who are exhibiting left or the left end of the continuum behavior are a lot of times they don't know the technique. They don't understand that it's a technique that they're employing, that they could go and name it. A lot of them do because they study things like this, right? This is why you need to learn it, because you're not the only one out there doing this stuff. You're not the only one out there learning this. This material is available to people who know where to look and how. So again, if you don't have it, if you don't understand it, if you can't deploy it, and most importantly, if you're not willing to deploy it, they will find you and they will use it against you. And I'm not trying to scare you. Right? I'm just being honest. We need to learn this. Right? I've spent a good portion of my life being a self-defense instructor in one format or another. To me, this is no different. But this is a set of skills that will allow you to actually move through the world and get what you want ethically, honestly, and make people feel super good about having done business with you, about having hung out with you or spent time with you or come to your trainings or used your therapy services or wherever it is you're going to use these things. You don't need to be evil. You don't need to be on the spectrum, but you need to know what these tools look like and how they can be used in an unethical manner, and where to look for when they flag themselves. Okay? When these people get caught in a lie, they will try to minimize what's happened. Right? I had a gentleman that I knew for a very long time, and he got caught embezzling over that we know of. He got caught embezzling over $80,000 from a very famous convention that he was helping to run. And when he was confronted with it, he said, "Well, I kind of liken it to taking change out of the cup holder." What? Think about it. That was the actual, or as close as, because I heard it secondhand. That was as close to the actual words that were used. Now think about how you $80,000 becomes change in a cup holder. How many times have you experienced that? Why are you making such a big deal out of this? It's just one thing, right? It was just a kiss. It was just, right? And you're right, Shamila. We all did. And we've all, and here's the suck part about this, guys, and please don't shoot the messenger, right? We've all been that guy or that girl where something happened and we didn't think it was a big deal, but somebody else sure as hell did, right? Or maybe we knew it was a big deal, but we tried to minimize our own vulnerability, right? See, when we do defense against the dark arts, what we actually do, we have like 21 different scenarios that we have people role play. And you actually get to like, okay, you're going to be the subject, you're going to be the aggressor, you're going to be the the perpetrator. You're going to accuse this person of something, and you're going to play the role, and you get to step inside the psychology from that perspective of what these things are like. Because once you can enter that perspective and you see how the thinking process works and you experience it, now you can predict it. Now you can start to really identify it when you're out there, but not just because you've been the recipient of it, so to speak, but because you've been there, right? It gives you a deeper understanding of how that side operates so you can prepare better. Well, Jax, it's simple. There's the door. How many people have ever been firmly entrenched with someone who's on the narcissistic, sociopathic, character disturbed disorder, tried to get rid of them? How does that work? It doesn't work that way. Nope, you're right. You know what that's called, by the way? There's actually a term for it. Anybody know? It's called hoovering. Hoovering. Ignorance is bliss, right? Well, you know what? I'm not putting anybody down. I'm not minimizing anybody's experiences, right? We've all been there. We've all been the targets of these things, right? It's what we do when we're presented with these things that matters, right? So I have a question for you. Has this been useful for you so far? Okay. So here's what I'd like to do, if it's okay. Hey, I told you at the beginning of tonight's webinar that if this was the scope of everything there is to cover, right, I have time for this. So I promised I would take you as far as I could in the time that we had. I'd point you in the direction of where to go to level it up. So here's what I'd like to do with your permission. I've put together a special set of programs that I think will help you really kind of close a lot of these doors and give you the skills and the abilities to flag people long before they become a problem for you, to remove these people from your life, but also to give you the tools that you want and need to write your own ticket in this life. With your permission, I'd like to take some time and share that with you. When I'm done with that, I'd like to pick up where we left off on this topic, and I'd like to go through that special conversational framework that I told you about. I'd like to share with you the 20 different psycho-emotional characteristics that these types of predators look for in their targets. And then what I'd like to do, I'd like to take it a step further. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to help customize the content of tonight's webinar to the exact applications that you as a group want to learn more about. If you want to learn about the what I call the predator protocol, which is, remember earlier we talked about the emotional bonding that can happen in the emotional dependency. I can show you and teach you about how that's done. I can show you some of the more of the patterns or the conversational red flags that some of these people exhibit. I can share with you how to turn things on a dime and reverse the tables on some of these people. But it's basically your call as to which direction you want to go. Does that sound like a fair trade? Cool. So then, if it's okay, with your permission, I'd like to share with you a very special package, and it's one I'm actually quite excited about, primarily because it's brand new and well, you'll see. I'm really excited about it. With your permission, I'd like to share with you the Secrets of Human Influence, Defense Against the Dark Arts of Persuasion and Manipulation home study course. This is a course that is probably one of the most powerful full spectrum influence and self protection tools for mastering tactical psychological self defense that you'll ever come across. Let me repeat that: tactical psychological self defense. But one of the things that we have to remember when we're talking about psychological self defense is there are people use weapons, and there are many different weapons in the arsenal of psychological attack and manipulation. And the one thing that is true with all weapons is that in order for you to accurately, adequately, effectively defend yourself against a certain type of weapon, you have to know how to use that weapon. The way it was explained to me, I think, and it was explained, I think it was Paul Vunak who first explained that to me, was that if you don't speak the language of the weapon, and that's exactly the verbiage he used, if you don't speak the language of that weapon, you don't respect its capabilities. You have no true idea what can be done, right? And that's when I taught NLP Ultra back in August of 2024. People were blown away because we took some of the most advanced, complicated black hat slash gray hat techniques, and we simplified it to the point where anybody could do it by the end of 5 days. Stuff that would have my friend Chase's head used, like his eyes would be bugging out. Right. In fact, Seth came up to me during the training. He goes, "Don't show Chase this." You know, he didn't want. He's like, Chase would be like bugging out because we took so many high level things and made it easy. Right. So anyway, be that as it may. So this is what we got. Let me share it with you. Okay. So what is this about? Well, Secrets of Human Influence is all about not only just making more money, it's about protecting your money. It's about helping you to keep your money in your pocket or in your savings account or in your IRA or in your what's the 401k or wherever it is. Because one of the things that happens a lot of times with these narcissistic, these predatory individuals is they'll get their digs into your life. They'll become significant others to you, and this hits a very important spot for me because several years ago, my grandfather, there's a certain type of individual that targets old people, elderly people, and they win their confidence. They make them emotionally dependent on them, and then they systematically take everything that that person has and leaves them penniless, homeless, and just emotionally crushed. And one of these predators got their digs into into my grandfather, and I was on the other side of the country, and my cousin tried to intervene. He tried. There was all kind. It was a nightmare, right? And it wound up destroying him, both physically, mentally, emotionally, as well as financially. And for whatever reason, my family didn't want me getting involved. They wanted to keep me at a distance. And so this is my way of making sure that this doesn't happen anymore. Right. So when I talk about I'm giving you the positive side, but I want you to think about people promising you things and then taking everything else. Right. I want to keep that from happening. I want to protect you from that. Right. So you'll learn how to close more deals, but you'll also learn how to figure out who's full of shit and selling you a waterfront property in Arizona. Um, how to get more dates. How do you look at those people who want to go out on a date with you and find out, are these people that I have to worry about slipping a roofie in my drink? Are these people who are gonna, make me psychologically or psycho-emotionally dependent on them? How do I profile these people and make sure that the person in front of me is who they say they are? I'm going to show you how to do that. You want to feel more confident. Being able to understand and read people is its own reward, right? And to be I'll be truthful. Many years ago, one of the very first products that I created was a course on sexuality. And when I was creating that course, there was a whole chapter in that book. And the title of that chapter was called The Hidden Secret to Making Any Form of Dating, Attraction, and Pickup Work Automatically. Do you know what it was? Anybody guess? Well, it started with pay attention, right? And I entered that chapter. I entered that chapter with the question: what if you could look at anybody and in 30 seconds, a minute or less, know if that person was actually attracted to you or not? What if you could look at any interaction between two people and instantly know who's more into who? Is this person becoming more attracted to me or less attracted to me? The skill, and the reason I entered it that way was because how confident would you be in approaching or talking to a person if you knew exactly who they were with the highest degree of possibility and certainty before you approached them or before you interacted with them? How confident would you be about approaching somebody you found attractive if you knew already with a high degree of certainty that they were already attracted to you? Shamila says I would be very pompous. You would be at first, and then it would the newness of it and the power of it would level out, and you'd realize you'd have a lot of gratitude for having that skill and that ability, right? Because that's what happens when you first get access to this kind of training and you first start seeing the matrix, as we like to call it. You're filled with this overwhelming sense of power, of being better than to a certain degree. And then as you begin applying it and you use it and you start succeeding, your attitude tends to change a little bit. You start seeing the drivers underlying people's behavior, which are almost always pain and suffering, almost always some form of hurt or betrayal. And it causes you to become a little bit more compassionate, which is, again, dangerous because in a normally socialized person, that level of compassion is very helpful and useful. In someone who's on this side of the spectrum, that kind of compassion is seen as a weakness. Okay? So I want you to be compassionate. I want you to be grateful for the skills that you have. I want you to also be strong enough and have a high enough level of skill that you can identify these people and not fall prey to the compassion trap. Because these kinds of people view compassion and mercy and kindness as weakness and stupidity. Remember, we're in an age now, peace through strength, law of the jungle. Okay? I want you to be kind. I want you to be compassionate. I also want you to be smart, and I want you to be safe. Because these people, not only are they antagonistic towards society as a whole, they know exactly what to say to stimulate the compassion providers in the system. It's called being couch broken. They know exactly what buzzwords to use. They know exactly what rationale that they need to express in the treatment room so that these kind, compassionate therapists that they've been assigned to vet them pass them. Okay. I take a very, very hard line against predators. Right. And yeah, I'm not trying to bring you down or anything like that. I just want to be real. Right. So if you want to be more confident, learn this. If you want to be more powerful, learn this. If you want to win the game of life and feel good about who you are and the life you lead, learn this because you'll become charming and charismatic and irresistible the right way, the best way. I promise. Okay? That's what this is really about. Okay? So here's what I put together for you. Now, this offer is good until 11:59 p.m. tonight. And there may be some other bonuses that you need to act a little faster on. So here's what you're going to start with. You're going to start with learning the art and science of human influence. This is going to be the core training, the Secrets of Human Influence home study course. Starts with 17 videos. It teaches you the 7-stage universal persuasion protocol, which includes how to think like a master influencer. In other words, people who are influenced are tactical influencers, tactical psychological influencers. These are people, they have a different set of thought processes um, when they think about getting their outcomes. And you need to understand that so that you can adopt it and be more effective in your influence tools, both positive, both in terms of being proactive and getting what you want, being generative, but also being responsive to and defensive to defend yourself and protect yourself. We're going to teach you the secrets of ironclad, hardcore, psycho emotional state control so no one else can push your buttons ever again. Remember at the beginning of tonight's webinar, I told you that one of the ways that these kinds of people get to you is through making you hyper emotional, by finding your pain points, by stimulating your emotions and stimulating them and stimulating them and stimulating them until you can't think straight. And your behavior defaults to pre-programmed unconscious responses that they can manipulate. I'm going to teach you in this program the most powerful approach to controlling your own emotions at will, on demand, anytime, anywhere, under any situation or circumstance. Nobody teaches this. Nobody teaches this. Okay? It's a $297, right? But it's actually should be a $20,970 value because this is a Jedi skill. Once you have this ability, these people start to lose their power over you like that. Okay? But I'm not going to stop there because once you understand how to control your state, how to step into any psycho-emotional state at will, how to step out of it, how to break any emotional state, you're also going to learn how to take the emotional states you want and transfer them into the other person or another person so they feel what you feel. We call it empathic transfer, but it's the ability to tap into the mirror neurons and proprioceptive awareness of another person, generate a body feeling or set of body feelings that changes their brain that causes them to behave in a certain way. This is extremely powerful when used ethically. It's extremely powerful when used unethically, but you don't need to. Okay? But you need to understand how it works so you can use it. And the best part is you'll learn more about yourself in that module than probably any other course you take. Okay? And no one will ever be able to push your buttons ever again. That's a great place to start. Remember, it doesn't matter what you know. How many people here, by a show of hands in the chat, have ever practiced any form of martial arts? Okay. How many people here have ever heard stories of people who've been in the martial arts 10, 15, 20 years getting their asses beat on the street? Do you ever wonder why? Is it because the techniques really don't work? Meh. Most of the time, it's because the person was not emotionally, psychologically able to access their skills. They got taken by surprise. They were exposed to something that their circumstances didn't prepare them, their training didn't prepare them for, and they didn't know how to recover. State control in our world is your ability to get knocked off balance physically, mentally, emotionally, and in seconds get back to being able to perform and function and access your skills. What happens when a lot of times when black belts get their asses beat, it's because they get psycho-emotionally knocked off their equilibrium, their mind control, their state changes, and they can't access the physical skills they've spent a lifetime learning because they didn't add the psycho-emotional training into it that allows that training to come out. I spent 50 years, 40 years as a martial artist. I've watched it happen. I've been on both ends of that. Okay? I get it. So when I teach you how to do this, right, when I teach you how to do this, you're going to be able to do it anytime, anywhere, under any circumstance. Okay? Because if you can't control your state, you can't access your skills. You got to have your state under control. I'm going to teach you the most powerful hypnotic language patterns that exist. Oops. So you can use them anytime, anywhere. And these patterns will completely derail any kind of psycho-emotional attack that you're experiencing if you use them. right? It'll teach you how to change somebody's focus of awareness to the point that they can only focus on the things you mentioned. It can cause you to make anything you want mean anything you want in the minds of the subject. It can give you the ability to make anything you want cause anything you want in the minds of your subject, right? And force a person's internal mind movies to be exactly what you want and so much more. These patterns are so powerful that some of them even work when the person knows you're using them and is actively mentally trying to fight them. Okay, that's how bulletproof these patterns are. You layer that on top of your rapport skills, on top of your state control, on top of your strategy and tactics, you're unstoppable, right? You become a force of transformation in that environment. We're going to teach you how to manage the emotional states of others, right? Remember, you can control your state, but you can't control other people's states, but you can manage them. And so we'll teach you how to profile where a person's at, decide where you need them to be, and how to take them through your words, your behaviors, your states, your languaging into the person you want them to be so they'll do what you want them to do. So let's stay in a defense against the dark arts situation. Let's say you're dealing with a highly disturbed, character disturbed, narcissistic person, and you're in a situation where you feel threatened or you feel disempowered. If you have these skills on tap, you can look at that person, profile them, find their psycho-emotional triggers, and neutralize them and get them to actually do what you want them to do and make them think it's their idea. Okay? Then we'll teach you to pay attention to people at a whole different level so you can actually hijack what we call their internal behavior code. Everybody, for every behavior a person generates, they have a sequence of brain regions that their body activates. And it comes out in their behavior, like what they do with their hands, what they do with their eyes, and what they do with their words. And if you can correlate those, you can extract a very powerful set of codes that their system uses to do anything. And you can fit your message into that code, and the people will just do what you want by default many times, right? It's really, really important because a lot of what's happening with these highly manipulative people is they're operating off unconscious programming. Right? They also tend to be a little bit more aware, so you have to be a little bit more. You have to have a little bit more on the ball, right? Because they're very keen on reading body language. Okay, so we're gonna fix that for you. We're gonna help you to understand body language in a whole new way. So, how to emotionally bond to anyone's deepest desires to get them to do what you want them to do. Everything human beings do is in response to a feeling. It's either a feeling they want more of or a feeling they want a whole lot less of. Okay. And so when we teach you about this, you'll be able to look at anyone, and I don't care if they're narcissistic, I don't care if they're sociopathic, I don't care. You've got to be careful with people who are technically psychopathic. But you'll be able to drill down very, very quickly into a person's deepest needs, figure out what those needs are, how they go about satisfying them, and predict their behavior. But also, you'll be able to link what they most want to what you most want them to do. And they will tend to do it by default. Okay? Very, very powerful. It's probably one of the most powerful things, aside from state control, that I can teach you. Right? And once you have it, you can ethically and honestly write your own ticket in this life. People will literally, in many cases, throw money at you and beg you to work with them. They'll hire you for jobs you don't even qualify for. We know this because at least 4 or 5 of the people I've taught have done this, where they've gone into a job interview, did the protocols we teach, were absolutely honest about not being qualified for the jobs, and got offered the jobs anyway. Okay? It's almost unfair, but it's not. It's actually the most ethical and honest way to communicate with another human being. We're going to include the Killer Influence Mind Control Manual and Manifesto, which has 200 pages of stuff that most people have never even considered to be useful, easy to apply persuasion and influence protocols, things that you can use to write your own ticket in this life, but also to inoculate yourself and your life from the influence of these types of people. Okay. Total value on this is $2,497, but I've bundled this course with a whole bunch of other programs that I know will absolutely change your life in ways that you've only begun to imagine. As you think about all the things you can do with what I've talked about, realize there's even more coming your way. click on the links when they become available. You also get these extra special bonuses. Hey, you're going to get the original Defense Against the Dark Arts, Counter Manipulation, and Hypnotic Influence Behavioral Profiling Secrets Home Study Course. This is a program that I created. The first time we did it was back in 2019. Since then, this program became the #1 NLP training program in the world for at least 2 years that I know of. Okay, it's the #2 ranked training in the world right now. Recently, somebody else beat us, but so this is the flagship NLP program in the world, guys. Killer Influence and then this Defense Against the Dark Arts both were ranked the #1 NLP training courses in the world since 2020. Right? You're going to get them both as part of this process, right? And you're going to learn all the different conversational red flags that these people use. Some of my talk, as long as I covered the behavioral characteristics, but there's also about 21 different reframe patterns that can come up during normal conversations that you'll be able to learn how to detect and how to counter. You'll learn how to take yourself off the menu. We're going to talk a little bit about the victimology of things, how these people go about sorting for their victims so that you can figure out, okay, I got to get rid of this. I got to fix this. I got to fix this. I got to fix this. Take yourself off that menu. You'll learn about how to read micro expression. We have special drills that we do that will teach you when people are suppressing information, when people are about to lie to you, when people are being free and easy and open and comfortable, when people are being dominant versus being submissive, whether they're being comfortable versus uncomfortable, right? You'll learn to read these very powerful, very obvious body language cues. You'll learn how to look at people and decide, okay, who's more interested in who's more invested in this conversation. You'll learn the five-phase psychology of attraction protocol that is used to create massive emotional dependency and emotional addiction between a teacher, mentor, groomer, and the target. And you'll learn how to identify it and how to inoculate yourself from it, how to use it ethically and honestly to create very deep, powerful, lasting bonds and connections with people, and to leverage it. We'll teach you about, obviously, we'll teach you about psychological filters. We'll teach you about reading eye accessing cues and so much more. We'll teach you the three-step red flag system for systematically being able to profile people so you know who you're dealing with before you show up for the date. Right? We'll teach you the most powerful conversational framework for eliciting information from people, for they just volunteer it. And I think in this one, if we don't do it in this one, we're definitely going to do it in a training coming up very soon. We'll talk about covert elicitation tactics, ways for you to get people to volunteer information without ever actually asking for it. Really cool. It's been used by tradecraft personnel for decades, maybe longer. It's taught to CIA, it's taught to FBI counterintelligence, it's taught to military, taught to interrogators, and you'll learn how to use it so that you can sneak things into your conversation in ways that prompt people to give you more information about themselves. Now, honestly, it's a fun thing, but if you do the three-step magic questions protocol we're going to teach you, most people are just going to volunteer whatever you want anyway. Right? Whitney says, the NLP course I signed up for and the hypnosis course are just meh. I wish I could have found you first. Well, you found us now. And trust me, Whitney, what you got from your NLP, your classic NLP training isn't wasted. And if you want to operationalize it and connect all the dots, this is your ticket right here. Okay? But it's up to you, right? No pressure, right? So this is a $1,997 value. This is designed to work. It's an extension or a variation of our award-winning Killer Influence system. So there's a lot more behavioral profiling stuff in it. We talk about face reading in here. We talk about micro expressions. We talk about different forms of body language. We talk about the 15 strongest indicators of deception. So much more. There's just huge amounts of information. Okay. So total combined value on this is $4,494, $4,494 if you register before the end of the webinar. But one of the things that we're going to do, we're also going to include one of the most powerful tools I've ever come across. Now, I did not invent what I'm about to share with you, but I did take that material and I customized it and I modified it to make it super easy, super fun, and user-friendly. So what is this program, Renegade Reframing, going to allow you to do? Well, it says it right there. What if you could overcome any objection or change any belief in seconds? What if anytime somebody tried to gaslight you, anytime somebody tried to spin the blame on you, for every single time they did that, you had at least 14 different ways to turn it back and make it worse for them, to make them squirm, if that's what you wanted to do. What if you had 14 different ways to change any limiting belief or sales objection or excuse that somebody gave you completely around in under 30 seconds? And that's before you started stacking these things. How much more would your life, how much easier would your life be with just that ability? Seriously, think about it. If anytime somebody came at you with a limiting belief, I don't want to do my homework. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to jujitsu, right? I don't want to, I don't know. I need to talk to my wife about something. I need to talk to my husband about something, right? What if you can just change it instantly and have them agree with you, like, and feel fully good about it, right? That's what this particular program, Renegade Reframing, is all about. It's going to teach you in a fun, easy, gamey way. We've actually made a game out of it. How to use what we call sleight of mouth patterns from neurolinguistic programming and use and deploy those patterns in such a way that you can easily, effortlessly, automatically change any belief you want into any other belief that you want in 1 to 3 minutes, depending on how many frame patterns you need to do, right? Now, the best part is you don't even need this if you do the first part that we teach you in Secrets of Human Influence. But if you screw it up, this is what gets you back into the game. So again, we included this because this can be used on you as well. Remember what I said about how narcissists, sociopaths, dark triads, all these predatory psychological specimens, they get what they want by making you promises that get you deeply emotional or firing off your negative emotions so you'll respond in a specific way. Well, part of what goes into that is the holes or the vulnerabilities in your belief system. So think about that. If the way you're manipulated is through your belief system, what if you could change all your limiting beliefs? What if you could completely dissolve them and make them more powerful, more robust, and more life affirming and more fulfilling for you? This is the secret part. That's what Renegade Reframing is really going to do for you, because you can take every single one of these patterns and use it on yourself to take any limiting belief, any fear, anything that holds you back, and change how your brain thinks about it, change how you think about it, right? In fact, one of the things that we do, I don't know if it's included in this version that you're getting, but one of the things we did is we had everybody get out a piece of paper just like this and have them write all their limiting beliefs on the paper. And then we would teach them a pattern, and then we'd have them reframe their beliefs, all of their limiting beliefs, using that pattern. Then we teach them the next pattern, and we'd have them reframe their beliefs again using the new pattern. And they would do like 14 different patterns on each of their limiting beliefs. By the time they were done, they didn't have any limiting beliefs left. They couldn't go back to thinking the old way again. Now, more often than not, you only need one pattern. But I wanted the people in this class to have the experience of what that's like, so that they felt truly competent and confident going out and doing it with other people. This will allow you to easily, naturally, and automatically change any person's belief, objection, or excuse in 30 seconds or less. Don't believe me? Test it. It's really, really powerful. But the way it's taught in this class is it's super easy and it's super fun, right? I love teaching the class because it's just, it's like game on, baby, right? It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give it to you for free because I want you to have it. I want you to be ready. Total combined value on this is $6,491, but we're not done yet. I'm curious about something. I'm wondering, how many of you have ever gone to a seminar, a workshop with people like, Robert Allen or T. Harv Eker or Tony Robbins or Mark Cunningham, or let's see, Lisa Sasevich, or let's see, who can I think? Who else can I think of? Oh, Mark Victor Hansen was another one. How many people have seen these people talking and talking and talking, and then all of a sudden, at some hidden moment, they say, "Go buy my stuff," and half the room gets up and just stampedes to the back of the room to buy stuff. Have you ever been one of those people? It's annoying. You ever wonder how it works or why? That's what your next bonus is going to teach you. It's called charisma and conversion, hypnotic presentation skills for presenters and public speakers. Agnes says, no, I only get that way with your stuff. Well, thank you for that. Right? What charisma and conversion is all about, and what you need to understand about these high level presenters. And a lot of them have like speaker and mentor coaching programs where they're going to teach you to do what they do. Let me give you a clue. They don't teach you to do what they do. They teach you what they do in terms of service delivery. They teach you what they do in terms of marketing, in terms of maybe keywords and content and topics. What they don't teach you is the covert hypnosis they're doing from the stage. They don't teach you the embedded commands. They don't teach you the spatial anchoring. They don't teach you how to layer and stack stories. They don't teach you how to use stories to install behavioral patterns and primes into the audience. They don't teach you how to wire your confusion inductions into the offer so that as you're going through the offer, they go into confusion. And then when you start slashing and give them the all-inclusive price that's just simplified, your brain goes, yes, and rushes you to the back of the room. They don't teach you that. I'm going to teach you that. I'm going to teach you exactly how to use those skills to build your business. I'm going to teach you how to use those skills to create content that your audience absolutely loves and how to leverage that content. I'm going to teach you everything from how to hold a microphone, how to move on stage, right? How to tell different types of stories that get people excited and wired and connected to you. How to craft an intro that has people saying, "Oh, that you're just like me. You built this. I can do this," and gets them fired up. And I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know as a speaker, from soup to nuts, in terms of how to create a presentation that is architecture, the architecture of it. It's engineered to prime your audience to want to work with you, to want to do what you say, whether it's buy your stuff, whether it's you're doing what we call service delivery, where you're actually teaching the skills that you want them to have. It's going to help you teach it to them better. It's going to help you install those skills in a way that's actually going to stick with them beyond the walls of the seminar room, right? We're going to teach you two forms of presentation. One is for small groups. One is for large groups. One is very away from oriented. The other is very towards oriented, right? So you can act, once you know your audience and who you're presenting to. So if you're presenting medically, it's always better to use an away from presentation. And when you're telling biz opportunities, coaching, things of that nature, it's always better to use a towards or a heart-centered presentation. Which one do you use? We're going to teach you all that stuff. Then you have this content. How do you leverage it? How do you put it on Instagram? How do you put it on YouTube? How do you leverage meetup.com if you even can do meetup.com anymore, right? What other platforms might you be able to use instead? It's all included in this program, right? Why do I include it? Because it's all about defense against the dark arts. You see, if you can't recognize it, you can't protect yourself against it. So by teaching you both sides, by teaching you how to do it, by teaching you what's being done, by pointing it out. I actually, in this particular course, I actually take a transcript from a very well-known presenter and I help deconstruct it. I show you the embedded commands. I show you the confusion inductions. I show you the story primes that they're using and how they're stacked and how they're layered so you can appreciate what's actually happening. Because you understand it, you can now perceive it when it's being done and choose to do something different or to allow that influence to go through because you can't avoid it. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot avoid influence. So you must master it so you can manage it, or it will manage you. Okay? Total value on this is $1,997. We're going to give it to you for free because, again, we want you to be successful. We want you to succeed. I built a huge, huge piece of my business. Most of you are here because of public speaking that I have done using these skills. Okay? You don't have to be evil. You do have to be educated, though. Okay? So again, total combined value in this, if you're to buy them individually on the website, is $8,488. So let's just recap for us what's going on. So you're going to get the Secrets of Human Influence, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Mind Control Warfare Home Study course. You're going to get the Secrets of Human Influence core package, which is 17 videos teaching you the 7-stage universal persuasion protocol that allows you to exert influence anytime, anywhere, under any circumstance, for any reason. We're going to throw in the Killer Influence Mind Control Mastery Manual. Total value on this is $2,497. We're going to throw in the Defense Against the Dark Arts Home Study course, Counter Manipulation and Behavioral Influence and Profiling Secrets. Once again, see, hold on a second. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to throw in the Renegade Reframing, how to instantly overcome any objection, change any belief, or reverse any argument in 30 to 90 seconds or less. $1,997 value. And we're going to include the Charisma and Conversion Hypnotic Presentation Skills Home Study course. Okay, so that's the package. Total combined value, and this is $8,488 if you were to buy them individually on the website. But the good news is, today, I want you to have the best deal humanly possible. I want you to be the winner. I want you to be safe. I want you to have all the skills that you need to win and keep your winnings, keep your hard-earned money, keep your hard-earned emotions and feelings, and customize and really optimize your life and protect it from the predators of the world. So to do that, I want to give you the best deal I can today. So you're not going to pay $8,488. If I drop $2,000 off of it, would it be a good deal? Well, I'm not even going to go there, right? If I drop $2,000 off of it, or $1,000, made it $5,347, would that be a good deal? Well, yeah, it would, of course. Think about it, right? But obviously, for today and today only, you can get it all for one just low installment of just $797. Okay? If you need a little extra help, a little extra time, you can break that up into 3 easy installments of just $397 each. All you got to do to get yours is go to www.killerinfluence.com/go. http://www.killerinfluence.com/go. The link should be appearing in your chat. Let me go ahead and I have to type it into for my YouTubers. Moss, if you can go ahead and give the link to our YouTubers, that would be helpful. All right. So, but here's the best part. You say, well, David, $797, that's a pretty good deal. But how do I know you're not full of shit? How do I know that this is actually going to do what you say it does? Well, because I've understated what this stuff will do. And there's absolutely no risk. Grab your course, test drive it for a full 60 days. If after 60 days you're not on the fast track, influencing people in a powerful, ethical way, and you're not only making more money, you're keeping your money safe, you're not closing more deals physically, mentally, emotionally, romantically, socially, personally, if you're not on the track to reaching financial freedom, emotional freedom, relational freedom, if you're not winning more social encounters, if you're not moving through the world feeling a lot more empowered, a lot more aware, having a lot more choice in the world, let us know. Give us a chance to help you through your sticking points. If we can't help you, we'll refund every dime. If on day 59, you're not being able to do anything that we're talking about, let us know. Pick up the phone, send us an email. We'll return every penny you invested. But I promise you, if you take the time to learn and do these skills, and you have the willingness to apply them, your life will change. And it will change in ways you can only now begin to imagine. I can't tell you how much these skills have paved the way in my life. You're here because of these skills, truly. And you can have them too. And you can use them and you can change your world. And as you change your world, the world will change around us. You can't change the world all at once. You have to change it one person at a time, starting with yourself. Okay? So click your links right now. Go to www.nlppower.com. I'm sorry, killerinfluence.com/go. I'm going to go ahead and maybe put that in the chat. This course this offer is good until June 30th, 2025, at which point it goes away. Hopefully, that is the right. Okay, good. All right. So, moving on. This is an amazing opportunity for you guys, but I'm excited because some of you are already clicking those links, and because you click those links, I'm going to tell you something. You got some other bonuses coming. You got some bonuses I didn't talk about yet. You got some bonuses that we've never offered before that are going to change everything for you. Okay. For those of you who click that link right now, you're also going to get the following fast action bonuses. A, you're going to get a 3-month trial membership to the NLPR Mastermind Mentoring Program and the 14-year archive. That's a typo. It should be 14. That of all the trainings we've done since October 2010. It's a $1,597 value. It's a monthly meeting that we get together on the third Saturday of every month, and I go around and I say, hey, what do you want to learn? 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 And I write them all on the screen. And I look at them. And I look where they all kind of connect and intercept. I create a lesson plan for you on the spot. And for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, however long it is, we drill on those skills until you can do them in your sleep. Like last mastermind 2 weeks ago was a double lung mastermind. I went from the nuts and bolts of influence all the way up to some of our most advanced persuasion protocols. People were blown away, not only because of how much fun it was, but how easy it came to them once you had the right training process and people to practice with. And that's the important piece about the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program. It's not just about the videos. And there's lots and lots and lots, hundreds and maybe thousands of hours now of video that you can binge watch that's never seen the light of day, that's never been shown on YouTube, never been featured in a product, and you can binge watch that to your heart's content. And for the time you're in the trial program, you get 100% access to it. What you really get from the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program is a community. You get me. You get my best people. You get an opportunity to come in person or log in virtually wherever you're at, learn skills that you really want to master, and have the opportunity to practice them with live human beings in real time, over and over and over again. Get feedback on your skills, polish specialized drills, ask questions, get answers, and then go out into the world and apply those skills. You're going to meet some of the best, most coolest people on the planet, people just like you, people who want an advantage in the world, but don't want to take advantage of others, who don't want to be taken advantage of, right? Who want to truly have a passion for these skills and desire to learn them for themselves. You're going to be able to have a community that supports you, that you can practice with, that you can reach out to, right? I'm very, very proud of the people who found their way into the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program, and I would really, really love for you to be part of that too. Okay, so if getting real world skills as fast as humanly possible is what you're interested in, click the links in the chat and get your package and grab this fast action bonus. So at the end of 90 days, you got what you came for. You can exit the program, no harm, no foul. If you like what you're learning, if you like the people that you meet, if you like hanging out with me, I'll show you how to extend your membership. It's real simple, right? The NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program has been the longest running hands-on study and practice group in the world. We've been running nonstop month after month since 2010, October 2010 to be exact. And we've recorded every single video, every single meeting, and we've archived them in our Kajabi site or NLP Power website, parts of our private YouTube channel, parts of our private Facebook channel. We're working now on consolidating everything into one big giant archive on our Kajabi platform. So everything's all in one place. But as a member of the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program, you get full access to it, okay, for as long as you're in the program. Add this to what we've already talked about. It's a $10,085 value, but we're not done. There's more. For those of you who actually don't want to sit through 50 hours of video, want to get started today, want to be able to do something today, this is going to be one of your favorite parts of the program. This is the Stealth Instant Conversational Hypnosis Crash Course. Now, Stealth is actually an acronym, right? Kind of like SHIELD, but strategic suggested through emotionally amplified, linguistically transmitted hypnosis. Right? It's your way of going out into the world and instantly exerting influence. Watch 2 videos, takes you maybe an hour to 2 hours, and you're out hypnotizing people like it's nobody's business. This is a course that I created many, many years ago. It's been one of our most popular, most consistent programs that people absolutely love because it gets you started fast. It tells you exactly what you need to know. There's no fluff, and there's only 2 videos you need to watch, but there's probably 20 videos or close to 20 videos in the entire program. Plus, it comes with manuals, transcripts, MP3s, workbooks. It's very, very comprehensive. It'll teach you the core language patterns. It'll teach you the emotional hypnotic hot buttons that people have. There's one whole video that's devoted to nothing but instant and rapid inductions. You can watch that one video, go out and start slamming people into trance in a loving, gentle, legal way that night, if you want to, right? There's 4 or 5 videos of me teaching privately in somebody's home where I'm going through these language patterns. There's another video where I think I'm teaching lie detection, and another video, I think I talked about the hypnotic hot buttons. There may or may not be a law of attraction video in there. I can never remember if I bundled that or not. Either way, it's a $997 value. We're going to give this to you absolutely free. Okay? If you can take everything, you add it all up, combined value is $11,082. Okay? And finally, for the first 21 people to click that link, if you click the link, congratulations, you already got this. We're going to include a free VIP ticket to our first mind control warfare training. This is a tactical, psychological self-defense masterclass. It's 3 days of counter manipulation, techniques for emanating authority and calmness on demand, how to become unshakable and unreadable in a way that people can't read your nonverbals, how to spot the manipulators in seconds and before they open their mouth, how to use behavioral deviation and deviation from the baseline, IQs, speech patterns, and how to so you can profile people faster, better than ever before, how to detect lies, how to frame things and reframe things, covert commands, how to use subliminal communication tactics to program people's minds to behave in a certain way, to undermine a narcissist or a predator's ability to deploy these tactics on you, right? You'll be able to do them on the fly. We're going to turn any conversation into how to decode the blueprints that are underlying that so you can take charge in that process. Same link, yes. If you've clicked the link already, you've already got this. You're already in the database for this. This is going to be on August 29th through the 31st, 2025. It's completely virtual on Zoom, so you don't have to worry about traveling across town, getting a hotel. You do want to make sure you get off from work, though. You don't want to miss any of this, right? We'll teach you how to detect lies and all that good stuff. We're going to teach you how to learn. We're going to teach you how to the counter patterns to neutralize the tactics that these types of individuals use, and we're going to have you train and drill them. We're going to teach you the most powerful ethical influence tools imaginable without becoming an asshole yourself, right? How to wield influence with integrity, to build shields and not swords, right? We're going to go run you through simulations, through role plays, real world breakdowns of certain types of interactions and scenarios, right? And we're going to give you live interaction breakdowns. We're going to give you critiques in real time, give you hot seats so you can understand how these things play out, right? Okay. It's a 3-day. So this is a $2,497 value. We're going to give it to you 100% free, right? So if you were to add it all up, it's $13,579. Now, is this something you might want? Well, let's see, shall we? If you've ever experienced any of the following, this may be something you want to do whatever you have to do to get at. If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling emotionally exhausted or drained, check the box. If you've ever agreed to something you didn't actually want without knowing why, check the box. If you've ever found yourself defending somebody else's toxic behavior, check the box. If you've ever felt like somebody might be a little too charming, only to later realize it was all manipulation, all smoke and mirrors, check the box. You need to be here, right? If you've dated someone who made you feel like you were always the problem, you need to be here, check the box, right? If you've ever felt cornered in a sales call or a sales pitch where you couldn't say no, you felt like you were pressured into something, or maybe you felt an overwhelming compulsion to say yes and you don't know why, click the box, right? Be at the training, right? If you ever worked with a negotiation, for example, and you feel like you gave them everything they wanted and got almost nothing in return, check the box. If you've ever worked with a client or colleague who consistently left you doubting yourself, check the box, right? Be at the training. If you've ever sensed you're emotionally managed, maybe even by someone you trusted, check the box, right? If you felt dependent on the coach, teacher, or mentor for your self-worth, big one, not only click the freaking link right now, right? I've seen this. I've watched this happen. I've been on both sides of that, right? It's not cool, right? Check the box, click the button, right? If you've ever realized that you were trapped in somebody else's narrative without seeing it, click the link, check the box, right? If you're ready to take your ability to recognize manipulation, to spot the predators before they have a chance to get their hooks into you, you're ready to have the tools for neutralizing that kind of influence and staying safe, protecting the ones you love in real time, click the link, check the box, right? If you answered yes to any of these, let's get even a little more qualified, shall we? If you checked at least 4 of these, guess where you need to be? And here's the truth. You didn't get influenced because you were weak. It's not about weakness. It's about ignorance. It's about not knowing what's happening. Remember what I told you. Without awareness, there is no choice. Right? You've been educated. Now it's time to choose. Right? You're not weak. You were targeted. You were targeted by people weaponizing the tools of persuasion to stimulate and hit you in your blind spots. Let me show you how to make yourself a lot less blind, a lot more powerful, and a lot happier. Go ahead, click that link right now, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay? So here's what you're going to be covering in these 3 days. Okay? Day 1, we're going to learn how to instantly detect hypnotic and other types of mind control languaging and pattern abuse, behavioral patterns specifically, on demand, so that the moment these things get triggered, your little button goes off and you know what's happening. Day 2, we're going to teach you how to build a behavior-based profile in literally minutes, using face reading, using micro expressions, using gestures, using aspects of my friend Chase's 6-minute X-ray. We're going to show you how to put it all together so you have a very, very powerful, very specific profiling system. And we'll take that, we'll graft it onto the red flag system initially developed by Dr. Wendy Patrick, and we'll show you how to have a long distance profiling system so that not only can you profile people in real time, you have the ability to profile them before you actually get in front of them. You know who you're dealing with before you get there, and you'll know where to look to make sure that they're actually who they're trying to represent. Okay? On day 3, we're going to teach you and field test countermeasures to break compliance, influence, and overcome extreme mental or emotional pressure. This goes back to our state control training. That's what we've got planned for you, and a whole lot more. Okay, so if you're interested, if this is something we've never offered this particular 3-day online virtual masterclass ever, you will be the first ones to have it, and it'll give you an unprecedented ethical advantage out in the world. Okay, so if you know this is for you, go ahead and click that link. Just to summarize, you click that link right now. By the way, these fast action bonuses, just so you know, the fast action bonuses are only good for as long as I'm physically present on the webinar. When I log off the webinar tonight, those fast action bonuses go away. Okay, the fast action bonuses go away. Ryan is asking, will this be recorded and out into the members area post-seminar? Yes. Anybody who is attending the Mind Control Warfare Intensive, you will have lifetime access to the replay. You'll be able to go back and watch it anytime you want. It'll be part of your account in the Kajabi area. Okay? That's my, So then you have to log off to do it. I'm not sure what that means, but if you have questions, reach out to Moss or Brandon. So let me just kind of review what we've got for you. You got the Secrets of Human Influence home study course. It's a $2,497 value. We're going to give that to you for free. You get the Defense Against the Dark Arts, $1,997 value, plus the manual, free. You're going to get Renegade Reframing, how to change beliefs and overcome any objection in seconds, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you for free. You're going to get the Charisma and Conversion, hypnotic persuasion skills for speakers and presenters, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you for free. You're going to get the 3-month trial membership to the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program. So $1,597 value. We're going to give it to you for free. Right? You're going to get the Stealth Instant Conversational Hypnosis Crash Course, $997 value, free. And finally, for those of you who click that link right now, remember, this is only good for the next 21 people. When we hit 21, done. Okay? Right? First time we've offered this. You can do it from the comfort and the privacy of your own home. You're going to have an lifetime access as long as the Kajabi site is up and I'm still around. You're going to have access to it 20 years from now. That's my intention. Okay? I'll do the best I can to keep it. 3 days, August 29th through the 31st, online from the comfort of your own home. All you got to do to get yours, it's a $13,579 value. We're going to give this to you for one low installment of just $797. That's $200 off our regular webinar special price. So all you need to get yours is click your link. Click your link, click your link, click the links. Go to www.killerinfluence.com/go. www.killerinfluence.com/go. Okay, so as is my tradition, we're going to give you guys a 7 or 8 minute break to process your package, give Moss a phone call, reach out to Brandon or Mia on our customer service side if you have questions. A couple of things about this program. Now, let's say for some reason that you can't do the Mind Control Warfare Masterclass on August 29th through the 30th. If you can't make it, then I'll give you 2 choices. We can give you access to the replay, or you can prorate your mind control pass to the next time we teach it, or you can use it for another 3-day virtual event. We have virtual healing intensives every other month. You can use it for that. We may do a Renegade Reframing online class sometime next year or this year. You can use it for that. You can use it for any 3-day event that we offer. Okay? Most of our 3-day events do not have prereqs. So Ryan says, you mentioned NLP Ultra earlier. Will there be another one of those in the future? Yes, we've got one in August. Live. It's a live event here in San Diego. Live event here in San Diego. The last one was awesome. It was packed, but and we went through some heavy duty stuff, right? And again, I know you're also part of Chase's world, so by all means, talk to uh, talk to Seth about some of the stuff we did. It was pretty cool, right? So anyway, our VIP tickets, you have them until you use them. So if it takes you 20 years to get to a 3 day event, well, then it takes you 20 years. It'll still be waiting for you. If the prices go up, it doesn't matter. You get in. If you want to gift that pass to somebody else, somebody you think might be able to use it more, you can do that. Just let us know. Okay. All we ask is that if you're coming, let us know. If you're not coming, let us know, right? Stay in contact with us. Okay. We love you. We want you to be part of this community. We want to help you as much as we can. But we can only do that if you stay in contact and you let us know what's happening. Right. So that's what I got for you. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a short break. Another thing, what always happens with people is they storm the phone lines, right? And what happens is they wind up getting the voicemail. And that's not a problem. The problem is that when people leave, when they get the voicemail, they don't leave their contact information. And so what happens is if you don't leave us your contact information, and when I say contact information, name, email, phone number. If you leave your contact information, you qualify for any and all bonuses that are being offered right now. If you don't leave your contact information and you call us tomorrow, you don't qualify for any of the bonuses, right? I can't help you that way. So please, please, please help us help you. Leave your name, leave your email, leave a phone number, a good phone number, a good email, right? And when we call you, you will qualify for the bonuses and we will answer any questions that you have. The other thing that often happens is when they look at this package that we're offering, right? They see courses they've already got. Maybe they bought a previous webinar package or whatever. Here's how that works. If you want this package, but you've already got a bunch of the videos in the package, click the link, purchase your course, pick up the phone, call Moss, call Mia, and we will let you substitute any of the other courses we have in our archive or in our inventory of equal or lesser value for the courses you already own. You can substitute out anything you want, so you can customize the package, right? These courses specifically are what we call foundation and extension courses. Most of the early courses I explained to you, they're prerequisites for every other advanced course that we teach. So chances are, if you've already got a bunch of these, you qualify for the more advanced courses. Jack says, can members get these packages? Members of what, Jax? Well, of course. If you've got, again, now I know you're a mastermind member, so if you've already got an ongoing ticket to the mastermind, we'll find something else of equal or lesser value that you can have instead. Okay. So, yeah, if there's something that overlaps, again, we're flexible that way. Why? Because we want you to have this. We want you to win. We want you to have all the tools, right? But I can only go so far. I'm really good at what we do, right? We can't multiply zeros. Your life can't change unless you do something different. This is your chance. Go ahead and click those links while I remain quiet for a while, and I will see you on the other side. When we get back, I'm going to go over some of the victimology. I'm going to cover 3 magic questions protocol, how it works, why it works, and why you want to be using it every day, all the time, no matter what. And then I'm going to ask you what else you want to learn about. We'll talk about that. And then I'll send you on your way out into the world to make things happen. I'll see you in a few minutes. Go ahead and click those links, and then we'll see you in about 8-10 minutes. Right. I'm back. We've got a few minutes before we get back to part three of the webinar. So, by all means, if you have, oh my God, thanks for not startling me this time. Sorry, Agnes. All right. What questions do you have before I move on? What questions might you have that I can answer for you before we get into the rest of tonight's content? To use military influence patterns, when would now be a good time to ask me your questions before you buy? Anybody? Bueller? 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 All right. If you're laughing at this, I'm not going to say you're old. All right. So let's move on, shall we? I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for now. All right. Oh, wow. Looks like we actually picked up people. That's pretty cool. So I hope you guys are enjoying the content of tonight's webinar. One of the challenges with this field, and I love this field. I am such a geek for this information. It's not even funny. Um, the problem with it is that there's so much of it, and there's so many different ways things can manifest. And I've devoted a good portion of my life not only uncovering these secrets, for lack of a better word, but to simplify them, to systematize them and simplify them so that anybody can learn them and use them. Right? Um, and even with that, there's just so much of it, right? So I hope that you will choose to be one of the exceptional people instead of the average person who just kind of drones their way through the world without taking charge of it. I don't think people who come to Planet David, that's our channel, Planet David, we're now evolving into the Snyderverse, by the way. Um, I don't think the people who wind up on this channel are sheep. I think they've been forced into the herd and they're desperately looking for a way to separate themselves from it. And I try to find the fastest, most effective way for people to do that. The challenge is that there's a lot of people who are more interested in learning about something than about becoming something. And I will always cater more to the people who want to learn how to become something and achieve something than people who want to learn about something. There's lots of people making bank on people who want to learn about things. But if you're ready to actually do and apply, then you're in the right place. So I encourage you to make that change, make that leap and join us. Okay. See us on the other side. That being said, let's go back to this idea of how do we talked a little bit about, well, John, it's, there are sheeps and there are wolves, but there are also shepherds and sheepdogs, right? And so, to use your metaphor, I would much rather say that I like to train the shepherds and the sheepdogs. There's not a lot of difference tactically between what a sheepdog does and a wolf does, but their intent is much different. And that's very much how persuasion works. There's not a lot, really, of differences in the tool of influence and persuasion. What makes it radically different is the intent behind it. And so to me, the world's full of sheep, the world's full of wolves. We don't have nearly enough sheepdogs. We don't have nearly enough shepherds. So that's who I'm looking for. That's who I'm looking to train. Do I get my fair share of wolves hiding and masquerading as sheep and sheepdog? Yeah, I do. But they don't hang for very long. They can't hang in our vibe, if that makes any kind of sense. They flag themselves early on in our community. Right? So I'm very proud of that. But let's be honest, I'm not a persuasion cop. I can't control how you choose to use these skills, right? Use them in complete compliance with your own sense of personal ethics. Remember, the universe is watching, and it may not get you right away, but it knows where you live, right? In this life or the next, right? So that's my moral teachings for today, right? And by the way, just to be very clear, I do not vilify any legitimate win-win influence application. So I don't care if you're someone who's into dating and attraction. I don't care if you're someone who's into mediation and negotiation. I don't care if you're, you know, anything. Again, there are certain scenarios, there are certain contexts of persuasion where a win-win is simply not possible. And I'll give you some examples. In the case of a criminal being interrogated, a criminal going to trial, right? In many of these cases, win-wins simply aren't possible. So all I can say is do the right thing when you're in those situations. Be effective in what you do, because if you're a persuasion professional and you're hired to get an outcome, you're honor bound to get that outcome. But when you do it, don't avoid being vindictive, avoid being petty, right? Avoid doing the hurtful thing as opposed to the needful thing, right? There are parts of us that are unhealed woundings and things of that nature that just cause us to just justice isn't enough. We lapse into vengeance. And that's what these people do. Remember, the people on this side of the spectrum, right? They're at war with society. They're at war with decency, right? It's only decent if it helps them. It's only decent if it was their idea, right? Know what's in your heart, do the right thing. Try to make every interaction that you use these skills in a win-win for everyone. When a win-win isn't possible, do the right thing. Okay, so let's talk about victimology. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for y'all. You'll see it behind me in just a minute. Okay, so what are sociopath, narcissists, and I'm specifically talking about predator level influencers or persuaders. Okay, what are they looking for? Well, they're looking for vulnerability. That vulnerability is often analogous to suggestibility. What you'll discover, and this goes back to my friend Chase Hughes's work, who I deeply respect. I don't always agree with it, but I respect it. Uh, but as you'll see, if you're familiar with both systems, we agree more than we don't. Um, we do have a few stylistic variations. Pardon my little teeny tiny writing, because apparently my default setting is still not really good. Make that a little bigger. Six-axis model. Now, every time I use this model, I find out that it's been updated or it's been changed or whatever. So one of the things that Chase, in his infinite wisdom and in all of his vast experience, discovered there are certain phenomena that increase a person's suggestibility. And he defined those six levers as the six-axis model. So one of the things that will do it is focus. Anything that increases focus increases suggestibility. Okay. Anything that increases vulnerability slash openness increases suggestibility. Anything that creates connection increases suggestibility. Anything that creates novelty creates suggestibility. Okay. Now, there's a few more players to the game, but here's the thing we need to understand is that each of these stack. Each of these, when you add suggestibility, one second, do this really quick. When you stack focus plus vulnerability, you get suggestibility times 2. Add focus, vulnerability, connection, you get suggestibility times 3. And so on and so on and so on. So the idea here, and this is one of the things that we need to understand about if you've ever found yourself suddenly just doing something and you don't know why, it's because these levers were used on you. Another one of those levers is called authority. They all stack. Okay? The more of these you have in play at any given moment, the more suggestible you become. Does that make sense? Are you guys kind of following, tracking this so far? Okay. So what does all this have to do with victimology? Well, vulnerability equals suggestibility, right? All I'm looking for again, editorially, all a predator is looking for is a way in, the weak spot, the back door that you didn't know was there. So these are the things that can create those vulnerability back doors that other people can use to exploit you. If you're on any form of SSRI prescription, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, it's going to create a hypersuggestible state in you. If you've had a recent death in the family, you become more suggestible. If you have a history of mental illness, specifically, well, any form, but any dissociative pathology. But even depression can be leveraged. Okay. If you've gone through a recent divorce or end of a relationship, why does this make us vulnerable? It goes to something called the identification principle. I don't know if we'll I hope we'll have time to get to it. When we start talking about the 3 magic questions protocol, you're going to hear me talk about something called career, passion, and pleasure. Okay. In normal society, modern society, you are what you do. So if I were going to talk to Richard, for example, I don't know what Richard does for a living, but let's say he's an accountant, right? And I say, hey, Richard, what do you do for a living? And he says, I am an accountant. Or maybe I'm talking to Sandra, and I don't know Sandra, so I'm just, again, please don't be offended. Maybe she's a nurse. I say, Sandra, what do you do? He's most likely to tell me, I am a nurse. If I ask Agnes, what do you do? And again, I don't know Agnes personally. Let's say she's a lawyer. She's going to say, I am a lawyer. I am equals identity. Okay. Identity is one of the highest psychological levers that exist. Okay. It's so powerful. I would be so bold as to say it is arguably the most powerful principle because it's pervasive in everything that we're doing, from the most basic, foundational, fundamental influence tools, all the way up to some of the most advanced, invasive, consciousness splitting interventions that are possible through hypnotic languaging, neurolinguistic programming, and things of that nature. It's pervasive. When it comes to looking at psychological predators, persuasion predators, and again, I'm going to get a little dark here. Okay, so please don't shoot the messenger. I'm talking about child molesters. I'm talking about human traffickers. I'm talking about grifters who take advantage of older people. Anybody that is using some form of psychological or emotional addiction or dependence. This is one of the most powerful leveraging tools that they have. Because if they can get their target to identify with them, a bonding process happens. Okay. And this is many times is an engineered this can be engineered. Okay. And so this is why the systems we're going to teach you in mind control warfare and defense against the dark arts and the flag systems and all these, it's why these are so important, because you have two basic categories of predator out there. You have people who are just sensation driven, guiltless, character disturbed, blunt force objects. They're just moving through the world, grabbing every opportunity, using and abusing people, and moving on, leaving a trail behind them. And then there's the other kind. And in my opinion, the worst kind. These are the predators who spend an inordinate amount of time looking like the best of us. Parish priest, the elementary school teacher, the gymnastics coach. Right? Obviously, our financial advisors, right? The real predators are what we call proactive. And when we look at this idea of proactivity, we're seeing the element to some degree of Machiavellianism. Machiavellianism is a deeply strategic, um, tactical, deceptive, and manipulative form of antisocial personality disorder. It doesn't have to be antisocial, although it often manifests that way. But these are the people who are the literal chameleons of the world. Okay. These are the people that are going to, this is the school teacher that seduces her students. This is the lawyer who hypnotizes their clients and doesn't and rapes them and has sex with them and then they don't realize it's happening. This is the human trafficker who takes one of the women, the little girls that he's groomed, dresses her up like another girl that they want to attract, sends her in to the convenience store where she goes every night, every day after school to try to conversation, and they talk about things they have in common. And that girl becomes this girl's friend, and it lures her into that world of human trafficking and abuse. It's all done through the identification principle. Now, I'm teaching you, I'm sharing with you a very dark side of this, but it's also the reason that we feel so good around the right kind of people, people who share our values, people who share our ethics, people who share our love of certain activities. The more alike a person we are, the more we like them. You can't avoid it. You can't deny it. Okay. It's hardwired into your nervous system. I'm going to say something that has the potential now to be construed as very, 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 in a very wrong way if I'm not careful. But I have to. I have to say this because we can't let the person's ideals or sensitivities keep us from talking about what we know neurologically to be true. Every single one of us is biased. Every single one of us is prejudiced, even if we don't know it. Your nervous system is moving through the world looking for itself. And you can see this. Okay? You can see this if you're willing to actually step outside of what's politically correct and what isn't and look at what actually is happening. Right? Ask yourself a question. Who do you feel more comfortable around? People who are different than you or people who are more like you? Do you feel more comfortable around people who dress like you or not like you? Do you feel more comfortable about people who like the same books or watch the same videos that you do? Right? It's a very simple idea. Your nervous system evolved a certain way. Sameness equals safety. But then you'll have the biologists and some of these people say, well, no. Our biology is designed to sort for people as different from us as possible to assure better offspring. Yes, within a homogeneous environment, that's true. Back when we were crawling out of the ocean and we were swinging in trees, it was just us. We had one basic unit, and we would look for the most genetically diverse specimen within that homogeneous culture to mate with, right? As different communities and different cultures started to mix and mingle, that genetic prerogative was only enhanced. But let's backtrack and understand this. You evolved to equate sameness with safety. Okay, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a survival-based function, a reproductive-based function. So you will always feel more comfortable, more safe around people who have the same qualities, characteristics, and traits as you. Okay? It doesn't mean you're prejudiced against other types. It means you have a preference. Predators exploit that. One way or the other, they exploit that. They look at what their ideal target is. They create a profile where they hang out, what they eat, how they talk, how they dress, how they feel about their family, who their friends are, how close they are to the people around them. They have a very, very, very complicated and intricate dossier of who their ideal target is. Once they have it, they create a legend. They create an avatar that represents the idealized version of what this person wants to be. The entry point is, what are they identifying with? What sameness triggers can I prompt? Okay. And once they have that, now we've got your attention. And attention is the currency of relationships. Okay. So let me just, are you guys, I put the chat back up. You guys following me so far? Is this helpful? Is this useful? Okay. The identity principle is something that I coined the term identity principle. You'll see variations of the identity principle used under different labels. But at the end of the day, we can't and won't fight ourselves. We won't resist ourselves. And predators know this. They know there's more to it, but they know that if we want to create a connection, remember our suggestibility levers? We want to create focus. I'm going to get your attention. I'm going to show markers that signal I'm just like you. I'm going to talk about things that are important to you. That's going to leverage connection, vulnerability, and focus. And because very few people have related to you that way, that deep, it's going to activate the novelty lever. You're going to become increasingly more suggestible. Okay. Now, here's the thing. These principles are inherently neutral. Benevolent people, benevolent groups use this just as frequently as not so benevolent people. The difference is it a win-win or not? So again, as my Sifu, Jerry Allen Johnson likes to say, please don't shoot the messenger. But you need to understand this. But this is why people who are exhibiting the victimology, the traits that we're talking about, they're an easier mark. Okay. Um, Let me go back to my screen. Okay. So the identity principle is something that you, as an influence trained professional, and I consider you to be, even though maybe some of you are advanced, maybe some of you are you're just starting with Planet David. This is something that we want to really overlearn and really master. Okay. But how does that relate to this? I mean, I opened a big loop. Let me close it. You are what you do. Okay. So when people say, when you ask somebody what they do, going back to when I was picking on Richard, Richard says, I am an accountant. He does not say, I do accounting. Okay. When I asked Agnes what she does for a living, she did not say, I am a lawyer. Or she did not say, I do lawyering. It even sounds weird, right? When I was picking on, was it Sandra? When I was calling on Sandra, Sandra did not say, I do nursing, right? Why? Because that's just a behavior. That's just something you do. But human beings tend to identify who they are with what they do. The same thing is true with relationships. People don't say, I do marriage, right? They say, I am married, right? Okay. So why is the disillusion of of the recent divorce or end of a relationship important? Because if you identify with something and it goes away, your sense of self becomes weak. And you all kind of know this already. How do you know this? How many people here have been or have known somebody who lost their job and within a very short time they got a divorce or broke up with their significant other? How many of you know somebody who went through a divorce and it affected them so powerfully they wound up losing their job? Very, very often, one identity level loss follows another. When cults indoctrinate you, okay? And by the way, the list I'm sharing with you is a love list for cult recruitment. When cults try to indoctrinate you, the first thing they want to do is assess your vulnerabilities. They want to assess the strength of your identity. Okay. And so what they're going to do is they're going to get you to identify with them. They're going to feed the unmet need that they perceive in you psychologically. You follow me so far? They're going to feed the things you most emotionally need and want. Those are your values. Those are what support your identity. As you seek after getting your values fed and satisfied, they're going to entice you into environments, situations, and circumstances that are further and further and further removed from everything that is familiar to you. Remember, we talked about at the beginning of the class object relations theory, embodied cognition? You have certain identities that activate in certain environments. When you go to work, you have the work identity flying and the program running. When you go to coach your kid's soccer game on Saturdays, you have soccer mom or soccer dad identity going. They're different. Same body, different program. Every single place that you go on a regular basis has an identity anchored to it. Okay? So I want you to adopt an identity that's in alignment with my agenda for you. The first thing I have to do is turn off all the other identities. I have to find ways to make them weaker. How do I do that? I feed you what you most need and I guide you into my little Venus flytrap of a web. And I give you very specific rules to follow. And when you follow them, I bomb you with love, approval, validation, connection. When you don't, well, you get shunned, you get disapproved of, and I oscillate you back and forth. But that's only part of what's happening. What also is happening is that as I move you to these different locations, you're no longer surrounded by your friends. You're surrounded by the friends I chose for you. When I move you to these locations, you're no longer surrounded by objects that are familiar, that you're used to. You're surrounded by the objects, the symbologies, and the doctrines that I chose for you. Okay? Because I'm systematically removing you from everything that's familiar, the anchors to your existing personality and identity get weaker and weaker and weaker, and they start to feel more vulnerable. They start to feel more threatened. But your neurology wants to survive. It equates pain with death. It equates ostracism with death. And so by moving you away, alienating you and distancing you from everything that's familiar, the identity that you operate from becomes weaker and weaker and weaker till eventually a new one begins to form. an identity that is more suited to the new environment, an identity that is more suited to the new culture. And the more that is reinforced, the harder it is to break. Okay. But how do we get you there? Or how do they get you there? They figure out the way in. Who has more ways in? Someone who is completely character disturbed and feels no emotion except desire? Well, depends on your skill set. Or someone who's nervous about their taxes, nervous about the dog getting groomed properly, nervous about everything on the planet, who has an already weakened sense of identity because the building blocks of everything in their life are now in chaos. Remember, the human nervous system is terrified of chaos. It will do anything to get out of neurological, emotional, or psychological chaos, including adopt ideologies and behaviors that it, in any other context, would find unpalatable. Okay, you want to see that? Go research the Milgram experiments. They did it. Was it Zygarnik? The Zimbardo experiments. Okay, context is king because identity shifts as context shifts. Okay, so again, I just wanted to say why are these things so why does this make us vulnerable? This is why. Right. So if you've gone through a breakup, if you've lost a job, if you've lost someone you love to illness or accident, get that shit fixed. Get healed on it so you can become healthy again and take yourself off the menu. Okay. Hold on a second. Let me find my OneNote. Okay. If somebody's had recent financial problems or loss of credit, once again, one of the things, it's interesting because very often a financial loss, will translate into sexual loss. Many times when people are going through financial straits, they become impotent. It's a weird connection. Again, I do clinical work, so I've seen this. Whitney's asking, what percentage of our memories are actually fact? Very few. I don't know the exact number, but we do know that memories are not recalled, they're reconstructed. And every time they're reconstructed, they change. Many times, 3 or 4 different memories will be combined into one gestalt memory where elements of each one are put together in a weird way. So, no, there's not a lot of actual fact in your memories. Okay? And in fact, every time you recall them, they change. Okay? Which is actually strategically useful, depending on what your skill sets are and what your intentions are. If you have a history of seeking help from suicide hotlines. Now, I'm going to play teacher for a moment. I'll play teacher for a moment. Why might that be true? Why might that be true? Anybody? So the question John was asking, what's your opinion on ask formations versus affirmations? Well, that term ask formations sounds an awful lot like my yin formation term. So I think somebody stole my idea and put a new name to it. But anyway, what was the question? Sorry. All right. Why might somebody who has a history of seeking help from suicide hotlines be a good target for a predator? I'll let you think about that while I remind you that the clock is running on our latest offer and that mind control warfare workshop and all the good bonuses that go with it. So once again, if you haven't clicked your link, make sure you do, because again, I'm kind of giving you the sample platter of what we're going to be covering. You're going to get the Secrets of Human Influence Home Study Course, $2,497 value. You're going to get Defense Against the Dark Arts, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you for free. You're going to get the Renegade Reframing Instant Conversational Belief Change and Overcoming Objections Home Study Course, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you for free. You're going to get the Charisma and Conversion Home Study Course for $1,997 value, absolutely free. You get the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program 3-month trial membership, plus the archive, $1,597 value. You're going to get the Stealth Instant Conversational Hypnosis Crash Course, $997 value. And of course, the Mind Control Warfare 3-day virtual intensive boot camp scheduled for August 29th through the 31st, live on Zoom. Total package value here is $13,579. You can get it on this super secret summer special for just, and get an extra $200 off our regular webinar program. You can get it all for just $797, or if you want, you can break it up into 3 installments of $397 each. And you can start watching that stuff tonight. Just click this link in the chat right now, www.killerinfluence.com/go. www.killerinfluence.com/go. Hopefully I got that right for you guys in the chat. And of course here. And again, this is we've never taught this particular class before. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to do it. We're embracing the new normal, so to speak, and giving you guys the actual tools that you need. So Whitney says, my narc grabbed me when I had lost my dad and was extremely alone and on antidepressant. Boom. How many boxes did you just check? Right, Whitney? And again, I'm not trying to, put anybody down, but let's take ourselves off the menu here. Okay, let's have a very honest conversation about how human beings actually work so that we can change that. One of the things you'll learn when you come to the intensive is that when I stand up in front of the room and I talk to people about killer influence, and I talk to people about Defense Against the Dark Arts or NLP Ultra and those influence materials, one of the first things that I always tell people, as I said, if we are going to learn the tools of influence, then we must understand and accept certain things as functionally true. It's not about ideology. It's pragmatism, it's practicality, and it's functionality. The tools are inherently neutral. How you choose to use them is based on your own specific values and ideology. But people can use the same tools and have very, very different ideologies or ideals. And this is why, if we want to be as effective as we can in influence, whether it's profiling, whether it's influencing, whether it's defending or counter influencing, you will never make your world what you want it to be until you understand it and accept it the way it is. I'll say that 2 more times. You will never make your world what you want it to be until you can understand and accept the world the way it is. Last time. You will never make your world what you want it to be until you can understand and accept the world the way it is. Which means if I say something that is really politically explosive, like every human being on the planet, black, white, Hispanic, gender, transgender, no gender, is biased and in some cases prejudiced. That's a very provocative statement, and it's neurologically true because of physics. Okay? Every nervous system is moving through the world looking for itself. Okay? Certain racial avatars, certain gender-based avatars, certain physiognomies will create a different response in the same context. And that's the science. We have to understand that. We have to accept it. We don't have to like it. We can wish all day long that it was not that way. But at the end of the day, that's what's true, and we have to manage it. Does that make sense? We have to manage it. Okay. So let's get back to our regularly scheduled program. I'm going to get off my soapbox yet again. So I was asking people, they need validation and someone to give them a compelling future. Yes, very good. Remember, validation equals support, equals focus, equals connection. Okay? Okay? You guys nailed that one. Good. If they have a history of having very few close friends, these are the classic loners, social outcasts, people desperate to be included, but feel other. Okay? People who are detached or estranged from their family. You know, these people also tend to be the outcasts, right? They're looking for a place to belong. Where they can feel safe and validated. You're going to find as you get deeper into these understandings that the quest, the desperate need for validation and inclusion, is a survival drive, and these predators know how to press that button. Okay? Desire for notoriety. These are people who they're the people who just dress weird, right? In Chase's world, we would call this a need for deviance, right? Strong desire for self-expression. Once again, people who are looking to be validated, taken seriously. Okay? History of sexual abuse. Now, why would a predator, and maybe this is obvious, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I can. Why would a predator look for somebody who already has a history of sexual abuse or physical abuse? Don't you think, logically, that these people who would have a history of it would be a little bit more resilient or more aware of people who match that descriptor? What do you think? Not necessarily, exactly. What you're going to find out, it's a rather unfortunate statistic. Many rape victims are often raped again by somebody else. Like I said, predators are profilers. They're very, very good profilers. Okay. We'll talk more about this predatory profiling approach so you understand it at the intensive. You'll also learn a lot about it in the packages that you're going to be getting. Okay. Heightened disconnection from friends or family. Very often, when a person has a dispute with their friends and they kind of separate or disband, that person's sense of identity takes a huge hit. And so they're looking for something to fill that gap. Okay. Okay. So that's about all I have time for in terms of victimology. What I'd like to talk about, well, before I move on, I'm curious. I'm wondering, what questions do you have about what I've talked about so far? What questions do you have that I can answer for you? No questions? You guys are brilliant. Is there anything in particular in the next 15 to 20 minutes that I can teach you that you'd like to know about? Otherwise, I'm just going to go into three magic questions. Sandra, you're stunned? Why have I stunned you? So I can learn to identify and block others' bad intent. Well, okay. That's going to come out with the is it typical for a victim to isolate? Yes. One of the things you'll see in most victimology is a tendency to self-isolate, either intentional. Well, it is intentional, but a lot of times um, it's not conscious. Right? Most people, when they're confronted or when they're imposed on their boundaries, they turn inward. They don't act out. They close down. They freeze or they befriend. And the term is, I think the term is, there's actually two other, is it one or two other approaches besides fight or flight? Everybody knows fight, flight, freeze, right? Most people aren't quite as familiar as the fawn and befriend function. Yeah, exactly. And this is again the appeasement behavior, right? How do I make this person like me so they don't hurt me, right? You'll often see people who have that tendency. You'll see that from a Chinese face reading perspective. They'll often have little lines down the sides of their nose. And these are people who, if you press on their boundaries, they'll put up a fight. But if you push a little harder, they'll cave and give you whatever you want. Think of the classic Edith Bunker scenario from the old sitcom All in the Family, right? These people will try to push back, but if you impose on their boundaries and they push back, and you push back a little harder, they'll cave. That is a very, very specific facial signature from a face reading perspective that you can see over time. Right? All right, let's talk about three magic questions then, right? And I love three magic questions because it allows us to do so much with just one simple tool. So let me give you a little history on this before we go into the class into the program. What just happened? Um, how many? How did you miss so many of my what? All right. Um, So Todor is asking, most cult-like dynamics over here are economically based, not spiritual or sexual or metaphysical. Well, it's a great point. Um, what you're seeing now in terms of cult-like behavior is what's his name? He wrote Combating Cult Mind Control. Steve Hassan, I believe, was his name. What you're seeing now in our new modern age is the advent of what is commonly referred to by Hassan as micro cults. And those cults can be financial, they can be fitness oriented, they can be personal development oriented, they can be spiritual for sure. They can be multi level. Many of your very powerful, large multi level marketing firms have a lot of cult indoctrinational practices that they're using, right? They would never call themselves that by any stretch of the imagination, right? And just and here's another thing we need to understand. Just because something is cult-like or is in fact a cult doesn't make it malevolent, right? Just like we talked about when we were cataloging these antisocial behaviors, most of the flagging that lets you know they're antisocial only happens when you say no. It only happens when you don't give them what they want or you stand in their way. The way you determine whether a cult is harmful or not, whether it's a mind control cult, and it be it financial or spiritual or any of those, is what happens when you try to leave. How much pressure do they put on you to behave the way they want you to behave? And where is the line? So, once again, what you'll find more often than not is you won't really be able to flag someone until you can see the big picture of their patterns and how they respond or what they do when you say no, when you don't give them what they want, when they encounter some form of resistance. That's when you'll see a lot of the big tells showing up. Now, most of us, we don't want to, we're kind of socialized into being agreeable. So it takes a while for us to get to a point where we say no, right? Because again, the smart ones use small asks at first, and the more that you give, you establish a pattern of compliance. We call that the law of compliance. The way the law of compliance works is if I make a request to you and you comply, the next time I go to make a request, you're far more likely to give me what I want. And if I make another request and you give me what I want, the next time I give it to you, you're more inclined to do it again. Smart predators will always make the ask just a little bit more than the previous one. The stupid predators, instead of taking the base hit, they'll go for the home run and they'll flag themselves very, very quickly. Right? Again, same behavior, different expression. But again, what happens when you say no? What happens when you give them a reason that they don't agree with? Okay. So Chinese face reading moving towards and away from behavior do not correlate the two on behavioral level. Just avoided that video. No, Chinese face reading and no, there's no correlation between towards and away from and face reading that I'm aware of. You can have someone who has all these appeasement lines and they're a towards person. You could have someone who has all these lines and they're an away from person, right? There really is no correlation that I can find with any population. So I wouldn't even try to make that assertion. All right. That being said, before we get into three magic questions, let's just say last call, so to speak, right? Secrets of personality, secrets of human influence, defense against the dark arts. You're going to get the Secrets of Human Influence Home Study Core Program training is $2,497 value. You're going to get the Defense Against the Dark Arts $1,997 value, absolutely free. You're going to get Renegade Reframing $1,997 value for free. Charisma and Conversion $1,997. NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program 3-month trial $1,597. The Stealth Instant Conversational Hypnosis Crash Course $997. And of course, the Mind Control Warfare 3-day virtual intensive, August 29th through the 31st, $2,497 value. You can get that total package, $13,579. You can get it for one low price of just $797, or you can break that up into 3 easy installments of just $397 each. All you got to do to get yours is go to www.killerinfluence.com/go, click the link, and we will see you on the other side for that. All right, let's talk about one of my favorite things is 3MQ. Let me just make sure I'm on the, okay, we're good. Now, 3 magic questions protocol to me is, to use some pretty provocative language, a profiler's wet dream. And what I mean by that is using this simple 3 magic question protocol, you can trigger a person's nervous system to like, love, trust, and a lot more in as little as 20 minutes if you do it right. Okay. Now, the three magic questions is a conversational framework. It allows two people who are strangers to rapidly generate a pleasurable, stimulating conversation that triggers deep levels of emotional attraction, trust, and bonding. It makes a very, very heavy use of something we call the master echo sequence, which is ask a question, pay attention to the response that you're getting, validate the response, echo their words, ask another question, pay attention. That's the whole algorithm that you follow. Now, some people may be brand new and not have any idea what the echo technique is. What is the echo technique? It's very simple. The echo technique is where you use the exact words a person says as close to verbatim as possible. Okay, that's it. Someone says, "Hi, David, I love your stuff." And you say, "Oh, wow, thank you." So hi, you love my stuff, right? It's really that simple. Why is this so important? Because the most powerful words any human can hear at any given moment are the words that just came out of their mouth. Now, I'm not going to go any deeper into that here. Most of you are familiar with the echo technique. Others, um, there's lots of videos and lots of actually other webinars where I've actually taught the echo technique at length. So I want to suggest that you guys go ahead and find any of those Secrets of Human Influence videos and watch it. So I'm gonna assume that for this particular segment that you actually know how to do the echo technique and you can understand and apply the master echo sequence. Regina's going, "What is the echo technique? LOL." Okay. So what is 3MQ? 3MQ is a code. We say three magic questions, but what does that actually mean? It means three categories of question or three levels of question. Each question, each level gets progressively more internal and intimate. Triggering all six axes of suggestibility. Okay, that's not all it does. Each category of question stimulates a more primal and deeper level of the subject's mind. It creates, pardon my, apparently my stuff is overlapping. It creates intense bonding and self-disclosure. In other words, and I want you guys to not believe me on this. I want you to go out and test it. When you use the echo technique on somebody, they start running off at the mouth. You can't get them to shut up. And that, as a profiler, is the holy grail. Because they'll just run off at the mouth talking about all kinds of crazy stuff, and they'll think you're their best friend in just a few minutes. Okay. It allows you as the operator to simultaneously attract, collect, and analyze the subject's information. And hypnotic language. Hot buttons,
in order to make a qualifying determination as to the subject's suitability or unsuitability for deeper intimacy and interactions and relationships. This was originally designed as a dating tool for women to use on men to figure out if this was Mr. Right, Mr. Right now, or a hell no, gotta go kind of a situation, right? Without wasting 6 to 7 weeks on dates, crash diets, new wardrobes, hairdos, the whole 9 yards. When I got my grubby little hands on this thing, I was like, this is kind of cool. What else can we use it for? Turns out you can use it for just about everything. In fact, when Chase learned this, he started using it in his interrogations. He actually told me he uses this in interrogations now, because again, it opens people up so deeply and so quickly. And the best part about this is that as they go through the different levels of question, they get deeper and deeper into connection, deeper and deeper into normal organic self-disclosure. It gets harder and harder for them to lie to you. They will volunteer the most disqualifying information with a smile on their face. So how do we do this? Okay. Well, there's certain principles that we apply regardless of what level of the technique we're working with. The first one is you always ask open-ended questions. In other words, you never ask a question that can be answered yes or no. You always ask a question that needs an explanation, an opinion, or a story. Let me say that again. You always ask questions that must be answered with an explanation, an opinion, or a story. As long as you're doing that, they're going to go deeper into a very, very deep state of connection with you. They're going to provide you with an abundance of language that is very, very compelling to them. And the more of that language you feed back to them, the deeper into connection, focus, and rapport they're going to get. And because you're talking to them in a way that makes them feel completely heard, understood, validated, connected, and approved of, their openness goes up, the level of authority that you have in their world goes up, their suggestibility goes up. And because nobody they've talked to has given them that deep a level of experience in a very long time, it's such a new and different thing. It stimulates and triggers the novelty faculty that causes them to amplify their suggestibility even more. So the 3 magic questions all by itself will move all the suggestibility levers as far to the right as you can go. And the longer you keep them in that conversation, the deeper they get. Okay? Whether it's 20 minutes or 20 hours, when a person leaves your side, if they leave your side, they will think you are the most fascinating, compelling, interesting human being they've ever met. And through the entire interaction, maybe 20% or less of what you actually said to them was not their words. Yes, many natural persuaders, and I've seen this a lot with people who English is a second language, will automatically echo people. We have one of our young ladies, or one of our mega students, Jodian. She's a natural echoer, and when she came to Killer Influence, she was amazed that what she was doing was actually a technique that we taught. And one of the challenges she was having was when she would talk to people, they would get so connected and attracted to her that they would just keep hitting on her. And she couldn't figure out why. Right? And when she realized what she was doing and how it affects people, she was able to actually have a little bit more choice in who she used it with and who she didn't. She was always a top, and she knew exactly one of the reasons why she was always a top salesperson at whatever business she worked at. Right? So again, there are many people who kind of sort of do this instinctively, or they just happen into it without ever realizing that it's a transferable, learnable technique, right? And I've tested this over and over and over again, and it's very, very hard to get caught doing it. Okay, and even when they do catch you, it often doesn't matter. Okay, so again, I don't have a whole lot of time, so I can only give you a surface level understanding of this 3 magic questions protocol, but it's fully treated, it's fully included in both Secrets of Human Influence, Defense Against the Dark Arts, we go deep dive into this whole three magic question process and teach you how to install it and integrate it. So I encourage you after this webinar to go into your Secrets of Human Influence course or to Defense Against the Dark Arts and find that section on the three magic questions and just drill it and drill it and drill it. Go through the entire Universal Persuasion protocol process. Follow the steps, right? But this is just one tiny piece of a very, very powerful system. So level one questions are always about the location you're at or the occasion you're there. You're always going to ask questions, and these are superficial questions. These are questions that are designed to get the person out of their head and into the world and get them into a conversation with you. Because most people are moving through the world in their own head, dissociated from the world. We can't influence them that way, not well. We need them paying attention to us and fully connected to everything we're saying and doing in a way that doesn't trigger their defenses. Location occasion is our way to open the conversation. From there, you're going to go into level two questions. Level two questions are always about careers, passions, or pleasures. Now, why is that? Well, let's reference what I talked about earlier. People are often associate who they are with what they do. They identify with their career. So when you start getting a person talking about their career, they're talking about themselves. They're talking about their identity. And they're talking about their favorite subject. Not only that, every human being on the planet has an idea for a book or a business. And so when they start getting, when you get them talking about that book idea or that business, they get passionate and they feel tremendous pleasure. Getting people talking about things they're passionate about causes them to go into a passionate state. And they're going to give you all kinds of words that are linked to passion. Well, who are they looking at when they're going into that passionate state? When you're feeding those passion words back into them, who's feeding that fire? Who are they looking at? Guess who gets anchored to those feelings? You do, because you're feeding, you evoked it, and you're feeding that flame, and that linking, that anchoring process happens, right? You always want to ask open-ended techniques or open-ended questions. You want to listen to their response. You want to validate the response. You want to signal to them in some way that you're on the same page, that you approve, that you agree, that you've had a similar experience, that you know what they're talking about. And then you're going to ask you're going to echo their words, and you're going to ask another question. And you're going to cycle through the 3MQ levels using that process, right? From there, you're going to go into the most powerful level, and this is the one that you really should be very, very careful about using. This is early positive childhood experiences. What you're going to learn as you get deeper and deeper and deeper into this material is that the earlier a person's memories, the more foundational and control they have over later memories. So if I can get a person to talk about their early positive childhood experiences, I will create this idea that they've known me since those memories were created. All the positive emotions that were connected to that experience will get linked to me. And they will feel like they've known me that long. And you've all had this experience where you met someone for the first time, and it's all of a sudden like there's this connection there that just makes you feel like this person's always been a part of your life, that you can trust them fully and completely because you've known them for such a long time. And even though consciously you know it's only been a few minutes, an hour maybe, or 2 hours, you feel like they've been an important and vital part of your life, someone you can always trust for a lot longer. And so it's natural to just be comfortable and follow along with them and do what they're asking you to do and talk about those things, right? This creates a very powerful effect we call pseudo orientation in time or time distortion, right? And it creates a very powerful sense of connection. Now, for most interactions, you don't need to go to this level, right? This is where emotional addictions and stalker triggering can happen, right? You have to remember the primary reason for this protocol Remember, we're doing two things at the same time. Okay. What are we doing? Oops. Let me find a better place to do this. Oops. It jumped on me. Always be testing. The reason for this protocol, ladies and gentlemen, is to do two things at the same time. A, trigger attraction, trust, connection, and voluntary self-disclosure. Why? So we can gather information, create a profile, and make a decision. There you go. Okay. So if you're going to go into this protocol, you should have three things in place. You should A, know what you want. And most importantly, how you know you are getting it. Okay. That information, that outcome is going to determine what? Your search principle. Remember, we began this whole training with this idea of heuristics or search principle. What specifically am I looking for? That's your search principle. From there, one second, let me find a way to get. So it's going so well. All right. Can't seem to get to the. There we go. What specifically am I looking for? That's my search principle, right? Brings me to my next principle. This is called the stop principle. This is when do I have enough information to stop searching? This is your stop principle. Again, you can't do any of this until you know what you want and how you know you're getting it. Okay? See if I can move this out there. Okay? Once I stop searching, we have our, you could say, the decision principle slash, you might also hear the action principle. What am I going to do? And again, it's very simple. Stay or go, right? Evaluate further, right? What's your action? Let's go with action principle. Right? And that's your basic body language profiling algorithm, right? What am I looking for? How much information do I need? And when is it okay to stop? And once I have that information, what am I going to do? Right? And you should make those decisions fairly simple, right? So hopefully that closes some loops for you. Remember, when you're doing three magic questions protocol, you're not communicating to have an experience. Okay? You're giving the other person an experience. You are communicating to achieve a specific result. What is that result? Profiling. Evaluating the target to see how well they match what you are looking for. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a axiom in Planet David. Always be testing. Always be testing. Okay? So pardon my really messy OneNote. I'll probably have to go back and clean this up for later events. But that's our inclusion of the three magic questions protocol and why we do it, how we apply it, right? And you can apply this pretty much in any context that you can think of where two human beings are interacting. It can be a business meeting, it can be a date, it can be speed dating, it can be voir dire, it can be depositions, negotiations, mediations, therapy. You know, tradecraft of any kind is very easy when you start employing the three magic questions. All kinds of elicitation gets really simple. Any type of conversational hypnosis gets really almost stupidly easy if you're using it within a three magic questions structure. So, questions on that? All right. Well, in the words of the immortal Carol Burnett, click the link. No, I'm teasing. Here's one last, this is our last call. So, and then I'm logging off. Remember, when I log off tonight, the fast action bonuses go away. That mind control 3-day virtual healing intensive goes away. Stealth instant conversation hypnosis goes away. 3-month trial membership to the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program goes away. So again, if you haven't clicked the link yet, go for it. Click the links right now, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay? And in the meantime, what you'll get is the Secrets of Human Influence home study course valued at $2,497. You're going to get the Defense Against the Dark Arts home study course valued at $1,997. We're going to give that to you for free. You're going to get the Renegade Reframing home study course valued at $1,997. Charisma Conversion valued at $1,997. NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program Trial Membership, $1,597 value. Stealth Instant Conversation Hypnosis Crash Course, $997 value. And of course, our first ever Mind Control Warfare Secrets of Tactical Psychological Self-Defense Masterclass 3-day virtual intensive, scheduled for August 29th through the 30th, 2025. It's a $2,497 value. We're going to give it all to you. Total package value is $13,579. We're going to give it to all to you for one low installment of just $797, guys. Do the math. Seriously. Grab your, click those links and let's get this party started. Or if you need help, you want to take your time with it, you can break that up into 3 easy installments of just $397 each. All you got to do is click your link in your chat right there. Go to www.killerinfluence.com/GO. Click the link, as one of my mentors, Dr. David Singer, used to say. And in the words of the immortal Carol Burnett, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say So long. Good night, my friends. I love you. I'm so grateful for you spending your time with me tonight. Please take this material out into the world, use it as best you can, and we'll see you on the other side.